Chapter 888. This scene was even more of a once-in-a-lifetime spectacle. These big shots at the top level were chasing after the one who had just left. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, their emotions even more complicated. They originally thought that Qin Youjiao was already favored by God. However, they did not expect that the person who had just left was already starting to make people suspect if she had a divine status. Was she God's biological daughter? What kind of terrifying talent was this? They were all humans, so why did it seem like they were pulled here to make up the numbers? Bei Yunj had just gone downstairs when she bumped into Du Xiao. He was standing in front of Mo Xiaoqin and chatting with her. He seemed to admire Mo Xiaoqin very much. Then, just as Bei Yunj was about to leave, Du Xiao immediately noticed Bei Yunj with his sharp eyes. Grr. Bei Yunj pressed down on her hat again. Soon. She turned to look at Du Xiao. I'm done with the assessment. See? Du Xiao was excited. Bei Yunj said, no. Du Xiao's expression darkened, and he was a little disappointed. However, this was normal. Bei Yunj's mind was not on music at all. The C-rank assessment was very difficult, so it was normal for her to fail. In the next moment, just as Du Xiao was about to lecture her, Bei Yunj continued, B. Du Xiao was speechless. Do you dare to say it again? Du Xiao felt dizzy for a moment, but was supported by Bei Yunj in time. Wait a minute, are you sure it's B? Bei Yunj was silent for a moment and looked at Du Xiao strangely. Do you like C-ranks that much? Du Xiao was speechless. Soon. Du Xiao patted Bei Yunj's shoulder happily. The younger generation will surpass us in time. The younger generation will surpass us in time. With that said, Mo Xiaoqin, who was beside her, said softly, you know each other? Mo Xiaoqin suddenly suspected that Bei Yunj had known that Du Xiao would come today, so she asked her to play the violin downstairs. Yes. This is why. Bei Yunj interrupted Du Xiao. I'm Bei Yunj. Du Xiao was stunned for a moment. When he came back to his senses, he understood what Bei Yunj meant. She did not want her identity to be exposed. Bei Yunj's age made her easy to be targeted. Du Xiao also hoped that he could quietly nurture talents and not attract attention. Du President Du. The few people behind him were panting as they ran. When they saw Bei Yunj talking to Du Xiao, they couldn't help but feel guilty. This was Du Xiao's favorite precious member. If Bei Yunj had complained about them just now, Du Xiao would most likely hold a grudge against them. What's wrong with this girl? I heard from her that someone took her score and passed the examination of our International Musicians Association. Du Xiao asked in a deep voice. Hearing this, everyone looked at Mo Xiaoqin and knew who had taken her score. It was the student who also played the violin but was not good at it. Everyone was put in a difficult position, not knowing what to say. They could also tell that that person's score was probably not theirs, but that person was the governor's daughter. If they got her out, the International Musicians Association would be in trouble. Are you mute? Du Xiao asked in a deep voice. After a few people felt that Du Xiao was angry, someone carefully probed. But that person is the governor's daughter. When Mo Xiaoqin heard this, a hint of mockery appeared in her eyes. It turned out that everywhere depended on one's status. Then, everyone thought that the person who was the least likely to poke his nose into other people's business sneered and said slowly, does the International Musicians Association accept all kinds of trash? P.S. The monthly votes will be restored tomorrow. The monthly votes will be 3,500 votes. Thank you for helping Master Pei. Thank you for your hard work. Chapter 889. The others were so quiet that they did not even dare to breathe. In the next second. However, Du Xiao retorted instinctively, of course not. Mo Xiaoqin could not help but look at Bei Yunj. She did not expect her to speak up for her. But then, she heard Bei Yunj say slowly with a smile, Old Master Du, investigate this matter thoroughly. After all, it's quite tiring for this lady to climb up the second floor with her bare hands. Mo Xiaoqin was speechless. These words made the others look at Mo Xiaoqin a few more times. There was such a thing? Okay, I'll investigate this matter thoroughly. I'll definitely give you an answer tomorrow. Du Xiao's words were surprising and worrying at the same time. After all, she was the governor's daughter. Really? Thank you, old Master Du. Mo Xiaoqin was extremely excited and bowed to Du Xiao repeatedly. Then just as Mo Xiaoqin turned to look at Bai Yunj, she had already left. Bai Yunj had just gone out when she saw a message from Yu Manran. Man, go. Or can I take a picture of your house? The kind that will be posted online. Pitiful. Pitiful. Bai Yunj raised an eyebrow and replied quickly. Up to you. At this moment, Inax, who had learned from others that she was going to the president's office tomorrow, had a terrible expression. This B***TCH actually dared to report me. Inax gritted her teeth. Inax, I heard that President Du Xiao helped you this time because of another person, the girl said. Inax turned around and asked, but quickly regained her senses. Who is it? The person who passed Class B today? Yes, President Du Xiao seems to have an unusual relationship with her. It's said that President Du knows her in country. The girl's tone had a deeper meaning. Inax narrowed her eyes and laughed coldly. I knew it. How could someone pass Class B directly? So she got in through the back door. I've been waiting for you inside for a long time. Why didn't you look for me? Qin Youjiao happened to walk out and asked. Inax's eyes lit up, and she went forward to hold Qin Youjiao's hand. Youjiao, do you know who President Du Xiao knows in country A? A dark look flashed through Qin Youjiao's eyes. Why do you ask? Youjiao, there's a girl who came to take the test today. She passed Class B immediately. These words made Qin Youjiao's expression change. Her pupils constricted and she clenched her fists instinctively. How was this possible? I heard that this is someone that Mr. Du Xiao met in country A. Inax sneered. I don't believe that she relied on her strength to enter. I've never seen her in this batch of new students. These words made Qin Youjiao suddenly think of someone. Bai Yunj. Qin Youjiao's gaze turned cold, and she could not help but clench her fists tightly. Soon Inax heard Qin Youjiao say, I do know that President Du Xiao knows a girl in country A and even attended her birthday party. Qin Youjiao hid the darkness in her eyes and said casually, however, it shouldn't be what you think. That person's name is Bai Yunj. I don't think I've ever seen her have any musical talent. Following that, Qin Youjiao laughed coquettishly. Besides, I know all the people from the last 2 rounds of the assessment in country A. She seems to have been eliminated a long time ago. Bai Yunj, the girl beside her suddenly exclaimed. Inax Senior Qin. I think I heard Mr. Du Xiao call her Gu-er. Inax immediately laughed coldly. Alright, I knew it. How could she be a Class B directly? How dare such a person report me? P.S. I'm late. Pinch my face, there are still 5 more chapters to go. 2 more chapters to get 3,500 monthly votes. Chapter 890. Qin Youjiao's expression darkened in an instant. She never thought that the person she saw last time was really Bai Yunj. Bai Yunj actually dared to appear in front of her. And she was a B-rank member? Was she trying to suppress her in every way? But what right did Bai Yunj have to fight with her? Anger gathered in Qin Youjiao's chest as jealousy burned in her eyes, but she quickly returned to normal. Inax, if that's the case, this matter will be very difficult to deal with, she said with a casual smile. After all, Teacher Du Xiao is the president. If this matter doesn't blow up, it will only be suppressed. Youjiao, what should I do? Inax immediately grabbed Qin Youjiao's hand and begged. Youjiao, I don't want to leave the International Musicians Association. Qin Youjiao seemed to be thinking for her. Inax, only your father can solve this matter. But, Inax hesitated. If you don't want to leave the International Musicians Association, this is the only way to solve it. Qin Youjiao smiled casually. I heard that Elder Du won't be the president for many years. And among the others, isn't Teacher Xiaohan the most qualified to be the president? These words made Inax feel less afraid, and a trace of ruthlessness flashed past her eyes. Okay, I'll definitely make her get out of the International Musicians Association. Seeing this, Qin Youjiao smirked. After sending Inax away, she called Elena. Elena, Bai Yunj came to the International Musicians Association. Why doesn't even Arn know about this? Qin Youjiao's voice was filled with resentment. She came to the International Musicians Association? Elena seemed to be surprised for a long time before she laughed. Is Emir Bayyunj worth you being so angry? Bayyunj became a B-rank member with Du Zhao's help. And I'm still a D-rank now. Qin Youjiao's expression was dark. Du Zhao actually let people get in through the back door? Elena laughed and comforted her quickly. Youjiao, Du Zhao isn't the only one who has the final say in the International Musicians Association. Didn't I bring you to see the people from the International Musicians Alliance a while ago? You can use my name to get that person from the International Musicians Alliance to help you solve your problem. Hearing this, Qin Youjiao's ugly expression turned brighter. Backton Manor. Bayyunj glanced at the missed calls and continued to sit in the flower bed covered by the semicircular glass, watering the roses. Next to him, Steward's son wanted to say something but hesitated. He really wanted to snatch the watering can from Bayyunj's hands. These Juliet roses are worth thousands of gold. Each flower was worth 3 million in country R's currency. If converted to country A, one flower would be worth 30 million yuan. That was why it had another name, 3 million roses. Moreover, just the daily care of the top-notch craftsman was not cheap. Miss, they're not fish. You don't have to water them like that. Steward's son braced himself and said. Bayyunj came to her senses and only stopped when she saw that the roses under her hand were about to be submerged in the water. However, just as housekeeper's son thought that the little ancestor was finally ready to go back, Bayyunj suddenly received a phone call. Guh. Just now, the roses in your flower bed were so beautiful. I picked one. The director said that this rose is very suitable for shooting a music video. Can I buy it from you? Yu Manran said happily. Bayyunj raised her eyebrows. How many do you want? About 100. Yu Manran said. All right, I'll send it to you later. Bayyunj hung up the phone, turned around, picked up the scissors and started cutting the roses. Steward's son almost fainted on the spot. Miss, what are you doing? Steward's son's voice trembled. P.S. On Monday it's time for the children to vote for Bayyunj. Chapter 891. When Butler's son saw Bayyunj cut off 3 roses at once, his heart ached. He felt that even his breath was filled with the scent of money passing away. My friend is filming a music video and wants roses. Bayyunj glanced at him and continued cutting. Butler's son's body was already stiff. His heart was trembling with the crisp sound of the scissors. It was as if she was not cutting roses but his heart. Originally, Yu Manran had asked him this morning if he could pick a rose and he had agreed. After all, Bayyunj and Yu Manran had a good relationship. But to pick 100 Juliet roses? What kind of joke was this? Can't you ask her to buy some other roses? Bayyunj raised her eyebrows and affirmed. Our roses look better than the ones outside. Butler's son was speechless. 3 million roses, gold coins planted in the soil, how could they not look good? Moreover, Backton Manor even had the best soil quality for cultivating Juliet's roses. The rose of Juliet here was much more precious than the rose of Juliet in other places. Many people wanted to enter Backton Manor and see the world-famous rose garden with their own eyes. Even the Fue rose garden was just an imitation. After half a year of transplanting, they still could not raise the Juliet roses, and could only plant other varieties. But who would have thought that someone would pick the Juliet roses to film a music video? Was this something a human would do? Miss, this is really expensive, very expensive. Butler's son went up and grabbed Bayyunj's scissors. His gaze was alert, as if he was protecting his own child. Bayyunj hesitated. How about 90 roses? Butler's son was expressionless. He was just short of holding a knife to his neck to demonstrate. In the end, Bayyunj only took 60 Juliet roses and cut 50 Louis XIV roses at the edge of the garden before leaving with a big bouquet of flowers. Butler's son looked at the small piece of the garden that was missing and felt his heart ache. His vision turned black and he almost needed a quick-acting heart reliever. At the filming location, the director stared at the Juliet roses and felt that they were a little familiar. He turned around and asked, Guer, how much are these roses? Bayyunj thought for a moment. It should be quite expensive. After all, Butler's son had almost detained her just now and forbade her from leaving with the roses. The director laughed heartily and felt that the young lady was really interesting. How expensive could 100 roses be? How about this? We'll treat it as our MV company's expenses. I'll get someone to check it out. This rose is really pretty. At this moment, the director still didn't know what kind of reality he was about to face. No need. Bei Yunj was just about to refuse when the director interrupted. Hey, are you looking down on me? Do I look like someone who can't even afford 100 roses? After that, the director took a picture and showed it to his assistant. He even mumbled, I'm going to buy roses like this for my wife on Valentine's Day. Bei Yunja's eyelids twitched, but she simply let him be. However, just a few minutes ago, the director had asked the staff to remove the petals and spread them all over the floor. The assistant suddenly gave him a call. The director didn't answer the call the first time, but the call came in a few more times. The director frowned. You're on the 3rd floor of the ancient castle, yet you still called me? Are you crazy? The assistant took a deep breath. He had just checked the variety of roses, and his mind was still a little messy. I'm sorry, director. My legs are still weak, and I can't go downstairs. Where did you get these roses? Chapter 892. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Qin Yu's sister brought them from home. The director frowned. I asked you to pay the bill. Why are you so slow? The assistant said. Then our funds might not be enough. What nonsense are you talking about? Before the director could finish scolding, his body suddenly trembled. What's not enough? The assistant took a deep breath. Director, there are at least 50 to 60 Juliet roses in the roses brother Yu's sister brought. According to our country's currency, one rose is close to 30 million yuan. If we buy all of them, it will cost about 1 billion yuan. With that said, the director smashed his phone down and could only hear the assistant's helpless cries. 1 billion yuan. The director felt that his scalp was no longer his own. He could not understand such a rich person. He turned his head stiffly and slowly to look at Bei Yunj. What roses are those? Juliet roses? Bei Yunj played with her phone as she said without thinking, I think that's the name. The director was speechless. Why the F***CK, were you running around with roses worth more than 1 billion yuan? All of a sudden, the director remembered something and his scalp turned numb. He had just gone to get the stage manager to remove the petals of the Juliet roses. The director suddenly sobered up and immediately picked up the loudspeaker on the table, rushing into the venue without care. It was everyone's first time seeing a director who was out of shape run as fast as he could. At this moment, as the director ran with all his might, he shouted into the loudspeaker in a shrill and panicked voice. All of you F***King stop. Let go of those roses. Don't F***King remove the petals. In the entire castle, the director's voice seemed to linger, making everyone sober up. Bei Yunj was speechless. Everyone was also confused. Bei Yunj did not know much about rose varieties. Seeing the director's expression, she also searched online. A minute later, Bei Yunj suddenly understood why Butler's son looked at her as if he wanted to die together with her. Oh. What was Nance thinking? She actually raised a few hundred square meters of Juliet roses? However, this was enough to show how wealthy the Higgins family was back then. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched. After a moment of silence, she quietly transferred double the amount of money to Butler Sunday. After a few words of comfort, she asked Butler's son to pick his favorite Juliet roses and transplant them. Meanwhile, the director had already rescued 58 Juliet roses, and 2 of them had already been plucked into petals. Seeing this situation, the director would rather he be the one being torn into pieces. This was 60 million. Director, what's wrong with you? Qin Yu had just returned and didn't know what had happened. The director's eyelids twitched and his entire body trembled. Brother Yu, I'll work for you in the future. He could not afford to repay this debt. He had never thought that the Qin family would be so rich that they would allow Bei Yunj to raise Juliet roses. Hearing this, Qin Yu could not help but sneer. Are you kidding me? Will you accept my salary? Director Liu was also a famous director. This time, It was also because he had a good relationship with Qinyu that he had used his talents to manage the music video. The director felt a dull ache in his heart. You don't have to pay me. I'm paying off my debt. Qinyu was speechless. What the hell was going on? Then, Bei Yunj and Yu Manran came over. Chapter 893. Director. Didn't you say that rose petals are used to lay out the red carpet? Why are there only 2 petals? Let me help you. Yu Manran had just finished speaking when he was stopped by the director. Don't do anything rash. Bei Yunj glanced at the table of roses and asked, is it not enough? When the money was transferred over, Butler's son was quite happy. Perhaps he would agree to send a few more over. The director was so frightened by Bei Yunj that he almost broke out in cold sweat and shook his head crazily. Enough. Enough. Then let's film quickly. With that said, Bei Yunj walked to the side and started to deal with Higgins's project. The filming continued. The director gave off a nervous and crazy feeling. He warned everyone to place the roses properly on the red carpet, especially the 60 Juliet roses. They must not forget to sprinkle water. This was the aura of money. Just as Yu Manran and Qinyu were about to enter the venue to film, they heard the director shouting from time to time. Qinyu, be careful of the roses under your feet. Don't step on them. Yu Manran, I'm warning you. Be gentle. Roses are alive. Everyone was speechless. Why did they feel that these roses were treated more like humans than extras? The filming was almost over. The director rubbed his hands nervously and walked in front of Bei Yunj. Goo, these roses, he said stiffly. I might not be able to pay it back immediately, but I can pay it back slowly. Bei Yunj raised an eyebrow and glanced at the director. No need. Treat it as a gift from me. The director was caught off guard with a look of surprise. Really? Suddenly, everyone heard the female lead scream. Yu Manran ran to Bei Yunj with a face full of fear, almost fainting. Grr, this rose costs 30 million yuan each? Right. Bei Yunj said slowly. Yu Manran was speechless. 30 million yuan worth of roses. No wonder the butler felt so pained when he cut a rose for her. He also told her to preserve it carefully, and that it could be used as a plant specimen. Grr, this year is the only year in which I've earned more. I'll return a portion of it to you first. I'll take on more endorsements in the future. Before Yu Manran could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Bei Yunj. No need. But this is too expensive, Bei Yunj. Isn't it almost your birthday? Consider it my birthday present to you. The director looked at Yu Manran enviously. To be able to ride on someone's coattails at such a young age was truly amazing. Grr, you're too good to me. Yu Manran immediately felt a lump in his throat. He immediately ran to another place and called Yu Hanran while crying. Brother. Yu Hanran, who was working, suddenly felt his heart tighten. He wasn't as carefree as usual and his voice was a little nervous. What's wrong, man? You will inherit the family business in the future. The director looked at Yu Manran enviously. To be able to ride on someone's coattails at such a young age was truly amazing. Grr, you're too good to me. Yu Manran immediately felt a lump in his throat. He immediately ran to another place and called Yu Hanran while crying. Brother. Yu Hanran, who was working, suddenly felt his heart tighten. He wasn't as carefree as usual and his voice was a little nervous. What's wrong, man? You will inherit the family business in the future. Yu Hanran, who was working, suddenly felt his heart tighten. He wasn't as carefree as usual and his voice was a little nervous. What's wrong? Chapter 894. The filming continued. Outside the venue, Bei Yunj received a call. She asked in a low voice, "What's the matter?" "There's a high-level order this month, but the member who originally accepted the order is not around. How about you take it?" Kay asked excitedly. "Not much." Bei Yunj chuckled slowly. "Did you forget that I haven't officially joined the association yet?" Kay was speechless. He knew that she was not easy to get along with. "Max, do me a favor. That 70 million yuan order is really important." Before Kay could finish speaking, he was interrupted by her voice. "Remember to transfer the money." With that said, Bei Yunj hung up the call. Kay was left in a daze. He could not believe that she agreed so quickly. Big boss, is she short of money? Kay muttered to himself hesitantly. Bei Yunj was also thinking about the time when she would return to the country. After all, she was still in the preparation stage for the Computing Institute project. She thought for a moment. Bei Yunj seemed to have thought of something and sent a photo of the flower bed to Song Yao. Yunja's song, do you want it? If it was any other time, Song Yao would definitely reply quickly, but it was strangely quiet today. Bei Yunj thought that Song Yao was busy and did not pay much attention to it. At the same time, she looked up and saw a familiar man walking over from not too far away. Bei Yunj raised an eyebrow, but quickly looked away and continued to play with her phone. Master Du, Miss Pei is there. Assistant Sung reminded carefully. Yesterday when Bei Yunj did not go back with Huashidu, Assistant Sung felt that something was wrong with the two of them. It was also Huashida's first time facing a situation where the little girl was throwing a tantrum. He bit his cigarette carelessly, the cigarette but burning red and then exhaling a faint mist. In the dark, Bei Yunj looked at him from the corner of her eye and saw Huashida's slender and well-defined fingers tapping the cigarette ash carelessly. He looked a little attractive. The man was good-looking. Even the cigarette in his mouth was flirtatious. As Bei Yunj thought about this, the man had already quietly walked over to her side. However, in the next moment, she suddenly heard the director announce that the filming had ended. She quickly regained her senses and looked up at Huashidu. Her eyes curved. Master Du, why are you here? Then I won't disturb you anymore. You can continue with your work. After Bei Yunj finished speaking, she walked directly to Yu Manren's side and followed him to the lounge. At this moment, seeing this scene, Assistant Seng's heart skipped a beat. This was the first time Miss Pei addressed Master Du in such a manner. Obviously, he was very angry. The next moment, just as Assistant Seng thought that Huashidu would be angry, the man was silent for a while before he suddenly chuckled softly. This shocked Assistant Seng so much that he froze. Did Master Du completely lose his temper in front of Miss Pei? How could he still laugh after being treated like that by Miss Pei? In the lounge. Ancestor, are you angry with Master Du? No, Father Pei, if you're angry with him, you can hide anywhere but me. Yu Manren had always been afraid of Huashidu. He had been like this since he was young. Who knew? Bei Yunj glanced at her indifferently. Why? Didn't you just say that you would shield me from the wind and rain? You can't even shield Huashidu? Yu Manren instantly fell silent. Looking at Yu Manren's pitiful expression, Bei Yunj curved her lips again, and reached out to touch Yu Manren's face. Man, do me a favor? Yu Manren looked at Bei Yunj's curved eyes and his heart turned cold. P.S. It's a little laggy, so the update will be late. Obedient girls, wake up tomorrow to read it. End of this chapter. Chapter 895. Inside the door. Yu Manren looked at his Bei Yunj clothes, and turned around pitifully. Master Pei, are you really going to treat me like this? Bei Yunj raised his eyebrows and comforted him with a smile. Don't worry, nothing will happen. Yu Manren. You will be fine, but I'm not sure. Yu Manren took a deep breath and closed his eyes. After lowering the brim of his hat, he pushed open the door and ran away. Bei Yunj waited in the lounge for about 3 minutes before she quietly pushed the door open and left. Outside the door, only the staff were left. Bei Yunj quickened her footsteps. After leaving the castle, she walked towards a place with a lot of people. But what she did not expect was, 10 minutes later, Bei Yunj sensed that something was wrong. In the blink of an eye, she saw a black car driving slowly behind her. Bei Yunj met a certain someone's eyes. There was an endless stream of traffic on the bridge. It was as if only the two of them existed in this noisy world. The man held the steering wheel with one hand, and a cigarette between his fingers with the other. He leaned against the car window lightly. His eyes were slightly raised, and the corners of his upturned eyes were even more seductive. He lit the cigarette and scattered the ashes. His low and lazy laughter was especially deadly. It was a gentleness that made people blush and their hearts beat faster. Miss, isn't it time to go home with me? Bei Yunj. Even Bei Yunj's heart started to beat faster. However, a moment later, she thought of the woman leaning on his shoulder yesterday. He could talk and laugh like this with other women. Bei Yunj could not help but curse softly. Bastard. Womanizing. By the time she finished cursing irrationally and reacted, she had already heard the man's voice. Huh? Wuxia licked his lips. His eyes were dark and unreadable. He asked with an angry smile, "Are you scolding me, Yunyan?" This was the first time he had heard Bei Yunj scold him. This form of address made him want to laugh. Bei Yunj looked up at him and felt inexplicably guilty. Half a minute later, she was the first to admit defeat and looked away. "Don't be rude." Just when she thought that Wuxia had finished reprimanding her, she heard him say in a gentle voice, "Why are you trying to flirt with me?" Bei Yunj. The expression on her face froze for a moment before she quickly turned around and left. Seeing this, Wuxia quickly opened the car door and chased after him. Only assistant Sung hurriedly came out from the back seat and parked the car. At the park square by the river, the people coming and going could only see a handsome man in a suit and leather shoes striding forward, following Bei Yunj in front of him. "Yunyan, high heels are very tiring." The man chuckled behind her. He had never seen Bei Yunj wear high heels. He had only heard Chris Vernon say that wearing good shoes was one of the most painful things in a woman's life. Without thinking, he knew that that pair of shoes belonged to Yu Manran. Bei Yunj had indeed not worn them much. These were new shoes that the assistant had prepared for Yu Manran, so her heels were red. However, when she heard the man behind her say this, Bei Yunj threw off her shoes and walked barefoot on the square. The scene that landed in the eyes of the others was a beautiful and unruly girl pursed her red lips and walked forward without looking back, but for some reason, she made people feel proud and angry. The refined and dignified man behind her bent down to pick up the pair of high heels and coaxed her with a smile. This man was so handsome that people could not close their legs. His smile was too charming. End of chapter. Chapter 896. Yunyan, the ground is cold. If it was in the past, Bei Yunj would have softened when she heard Wuxia coaxing her like this. However, when she thought of Wuxia being intimate with that woman, Bei Yunj's eyes darkened. For the first time, she felt as if her heart was being pricked by a needle. She pursed her lips and suddenly turned around. But she did not expect. The next second, the man behind her grabbed her waist and carried her up horizontally. His right hand was even holding her high heels. Bei Yunj leaned against his warm body and could only smell the faint, pleasant and cold scent on the man's body. "I can let you torture me, but don't torture yourself, do you hear me?" Wuxia looked at the person in his arms who had yet to react. He wanted to try biting her and make the little girl cry once, so that she would remember. However, in the next moment he retracted his gaze and licked the tip of his teeth that were itching. He hid the desire in his eyes and returned to his nonchalant appearance. Bei Yunj pursed her lips and did not speak. The people who were watching the two of them not far away could no longer control their young hearts. For the first time, they felt that the plot of an idol drama was so real. By the park bench, the man put her down gently and bent one knee slightly to look up at her. "Are you really going to ignore me?" Wuxia looked at her for a while, then lowered his eyes casually. He held her cold bare feet with both hands and placed them on his lap. He used his hands to warm her up. The little girl was indeed childish. It was such a cold day, yet she was walking barefoot on the ground. Bei Yunj instinctively retracted her feet, but the man held them firmly and she could not break free. She lowered her eyes and could see this refined and noble man kneeling in front of her on one knee, holding her feet with his head lowered. Even Bei Yunj suddenly had the illusion that this man would indulge her no matter how arrogant she was. After regaining her senses, Bei Yunj felt that this man in front of her was too lethal. He was so lethal that as long as he wanted, she could probably break any bottom line for him. Suddenly, the man's low and magnetic voice interrupted her thoughts. "You won't calm down no matter what, right?" Bei Yunj hesitated for a moment and looked up to meet the man's unwavering gaze. Suddenly, Bei Yunj saw the man chuckle softly. His posture was casual and ostentatious, and his eyes were slightly raised as he looked straight at her. His husky and magnetic voice was so ambiguous that it made her blush and her heart race. He coaxed her intimately. "Do you want to touch my Adam's apple? You only have one chance, Yunyan." Bei Yunj instinctively looked up, and her gaze landed on the man's sexy Adam's apple, and the mole that was extremely lustful. His heart wavered. The man took in her expression and chuckled in a low voice. His eyes were so dark that they could not be seen clearly. He leaned closer to her, and his low voice was blatantly seductive. Don't you like it? If she doesn't touch it, Yunyan will be at a disadvantage. When Bei Yunj heard this, she really reached out her hand and wanted to touch the mole on the man's Adam's apple. But when he really touched it, his ears inexplicably burned. What was she doing? Bei Yunj had just looked up when she met the man's explicit and burning gaze. Bei Yunj's body froze, but in the next moment, Huashida's thin lips curled up. He suddenly lowered his head and kissed her hand. Bei Yunj's mind went blank because of the man's actions. She then heard the man's low and hoarse laughter, as if he was deliberately teasing her eardrums. All right. You even took advantage of brother. Yunyan has to be responsible for brother. P.S. The aphrodisiac in the human world, Huashidu. End of this chapter. Chapter 897. As soon as he finished speaking, before Bei Yunj could react, Huashidu had already wrapped one hand around her leg and the other around her waist, lifting her up easily. She looked up at him instinctively. The darkness in her eyes disappeared as she clenched her fists quietly. Actually, Bei Yunj had always known that she was another Mengliang in her bones. She might be a lunatic when it came to relationships. She was extremely sensitive and lacked self-awareness. However, before Bei Yunj could think deeply, she suddenly heard the man's soft laughter. However, his deep and magnetic voice had a tone that made people blush and their hearts race. He casually whispered into her ear, I don't have much experience in coaxing people. You have to teach me, Yunyan. With that said, seeing that the little girl was still in a daze, the man seemed to be deliberately leaning closer to her. His thin lips curled up and he rubbed his forehead gently against hers. It was natural and intimate, as if he was acting coquettishly with her. Even if he did not say a word, he could make people feel a dense electric current run up the back of their necks and into their brains. It was so sexy. Don't rub against me. When Bei Yunj sensed the gazes around her, she instinctively wanted to press down on the brim of her hat, but realized that she was not wearing a hat. All right, brother, restrain yourself, the man replied unhurriedly. Bei Yunj, what do you want to eat when you get back? Huashidu continued to ask. Bei Yunj, anything is fine. She did not know how Huashidu found out that the first person to walk out was Yumanran. The two of them were clearly about the same size. Okay, then let the Neely chefs who came today make their specialties. Huashidu smiled. Until they got into the car. Assistant Sung understood and opened the door for the back of the car and closed the partition. When is Yunyan planning to return to Yincheng? Bei Yunj's eyebrows moved. Tomorrow. Then I'll get Sung Su to book the plane tickets. Bei Yunj glanced at him. What about you? Hearing this, the man looked up and chuckled. The emotions in his eyes flickered as he looked at her. Child, why do you think I came to Neely? She quickly looked away as if she had been scalded. Yesterday, didn't you and that woman? He was halfway through his words. The voice stopped abruptly. However, when Huashida heard her half-finished words, and coupled with the little girls fussing over the past 2 days, he quickly realized the reason. The man's beautiful eyes curled up, and he leaned against the car seat in a lazy and ostentatious manner. His laughter was low and hoarse, and it was particularly ticklish. However, his eyes were fixed on her. So our Yunyan likes brother so much? Bei Yunj. She knew that this person really didn't know how to speak human language. Yunyan, even if you don't like her, you'll still see her in the future. Huashida seemed to be holding back his laughter, but his pale-colored eyes were straight and charming. There was an ambiguous ambiguity in them as he dragged out his last word. After all, she's my biological aunt. Bei Yunj froze. That woman was really too young and beautiful. She did not feel like an elder at all. However, if you really can't accept it, brother won't bring Yunyan to see her in the future, the man said slowly. Bei Yunj. She had been careless. Just as Bei Yunj was thinking about how to apologize in a more tactful manner without losing face, the man stretched out his hand lazily again, and gently scratched her chin. He asked casually, Am I that bad? Did I dote on you for nothing? P.S. It's no wonder that Master Pei is obsessed with beauty. As long as Master Du appears, There will be 8 out of 10 messages backstage, and the screams will be posted on the public screen. End of this chapter. Chapter 898. Bae-yunj looked at him for a while. No, I'm sorry. She added, brother. The man lifted his thin eyelids and looked at her calmly with his dark eyes. What did you do to apologize to me? Just as Bae-yunj thought of several answers and felt that she could not say them out loud, the man's eyes darkened even more as he sorted out his emotions. He lowered his voice carelessly, seductive and gentle as he said patiently, if you didn't do anything wrong, why did you apologize to me? He retracted his gaze and gently pinched her cheek. Yun, to you, I have to be different from others. The man smirked, making her like him grow like weeds. Soon his casual voice landed by her ear. It was so ambiguous that it made her blush and her heart beat faster. Don't you understand? Brother only torments our Yun. Bae-yunj was speechless. When he said this, it was inexplicably flirtatious. At night, Bae-yunj sat in front of the computer and glanced at the advanced order sent by K. She quickly looked away and started to deal with it. About half an hour later, Bae-yunj called K. The order is done. Get him to transfer the rest of the bill. K could not help but be shocked. So fast? Didn't he just give it to her today? This order was not easy. How good was Max's computer skills? It's all right. If you still have the order, you can give me more in the next 2 days. Bae-yunj replied slowly and turned off her computer. Kay said, Big boss, are you short of money? Bae-yunj's eyebrows moved and she said lazily, it's not easy to raise the flowers at home. Kay was confused. What did she mean by it was not easy to raise flowers? Was Max's family so poor? Were they so poor just to raise flowers? But that shouldn't be the case. Her order was 70 million yuan. No matter what, she could buy a flower bed. Could it be that Max's family owed a huge sum of money to loan sharks? Kay kept imagining things. Bae-yunj did not care and hung up the call. Then, she glanced at Song Yao's message. She had not replied yet. Bae-yunj's eyes darkened as she thought about something. However, what Bae-yunj did not expect was that she would just tell Kay that. CI7 Intelligence Bureau's rumors about her spread like wildfire. From the beginning, it was a version of Kay said that Max owed a huge amount of money and had to come to CI7 to repay his debt. In the end, it became Max was caught robbing a bank. In order to pay back 10 times the compensation, he borrowed a huge amount of money from Kay, so he had no choice but to come to CI7 to repay the debt. The rumors were so vivid and convincing that people believed them. The next day, sitting in his office, Kay was bored to death as he checked Bae-yunj's order. Suddenly he froze. Order accepted. October 25, 10:27. Completion date, October 25, 10:51. So she didn't use a day to complete this order. In less than half an hour? Kay suddenly had goosebumps on his back. He knew why the people of the Chaosists had told him that they had sent a god to CI7. Half an hour. Even the senior members could not compare to this efficiency. Kay hurriedly called Chief Jiang Song of the Yunqing branch and told him about Bae-yunj. However, just as Jiang Song put down the phone in shock after hearing the situation, a woman walked in. Chief, give that order to me. I don't think anyone can complete this order. Chapter 899. Jiang Song frowned subconsciously. Then he looked at the woman in front of him and said calmly, no need. His words made the confident smile on the woman's face freeze. What do you mean? Jiang Song ignored the gloomy expression of the person in front of him and said calmly, the matter has been resolved. He moved the mouse and looked at the reply of the person who placed the order. He raised his eyebrows. And the person who placed the order is very interested in the new person. You let someone else take my order? Jiang Song. The woman's expression darkened. She clenched her fists. Qing Lu, you said that there were too many orders and that you couldn't take them all. You. The woman gritted her teeth. They knew that Qing Lu didn't do it because there were too many orders. She just didn't like the branch and deliberately made things difficult for them. This customer who placed the order had worked with Qing Lu many times. The amount of the order was big enough. She was Qing Lu's big customer. Qing Lu was now an intermediate member. She relied on this person to be promoted to an advanced member. Chief, are you sure you're not mistaken? I've only been out for a few days and the order given by my old customer is really completed? Qing Lu narrowed her eyes. Qing Lu, don't cause trouble. You can be promoted to the headquarters after taking 3 more advanced orders this year. Jiang Song's tone was indifferent, but there was a warning. No matter what, Max was sent by the headquarters. It could be seen that the deputy chief of the headquarters valued Max very much. When Qing Lu heard this, she couldn't help but sneer and leave the branch. Jiang Song looked at Qing Lu's situation and knew that she didn't listen. In the villa, Qing Lu looked at her background and pursed her lips. Soon, she found the person who accepted the order. Username max level. Private. Age of entry, 2 days in an instant. Qing Lu's expression turned ugly. This Max had only been in for 2 days and she had already taken her advanced order. But what did this private mean? Generally, members below the advanced level couldn't hide their user level unless they deliberately did so. Qing Lu pursed her lips. She saw this person as a thorn in her side. At the same time, in the office, Jiang Song smoked while looking at Max's user information. Username, max level, platinum member hidden. Jiang Song laughed. The higher-ups really value her. It's no wonder. Entry was a platinum user. Apart from a few senior members, no one else received such treatment. However, Max didn't seem to be interested in CI7 at all. Instead, it was as if the people from the headquarters were shamelessly clinging onto her. Backton Manor. Steward Sun's heart ached when he saw Bei Yunj squatting in front of the flower bed and picking out a few of the most beautiful Juliet roses. Uncle Sun, I'll take these 7. If it weren't for the fact that Neely was too far away from Yun City and Bei Yunj wasn't willing to take more, they would probably be able to gather a large bouquet of roses. All right. Steward Sun put on a fake smile and brought the 7 Juliets to make a bouquet. When will Miss come back? He asked as he picked out other decorations. I don't know. Bei Yunj added. If you need to pay for the manor, you can directly transfer it to my account. Yes, Mississippi Butler Sun nodded. After making a bouquet of roses, he handed it to her. Have a safe trip. Thank you, Uncle Sunday. When the plane arrived in Yun City, it was 10 in the morning the next day. Bei Yunj called Song Yao, but no one picked up. Her eyebrows moved instinctively and her eyes darkened. P.S. I wrote a bug yesterday. K is the founder of the Chaotic. So I changed the character of the CI7 headquarters. Deputy Director, Xian Yuan. End of chapter. Chapter 900. Bei Yunj went to Song Yao's house, but there was no one there. Mrs. Song's shop was also closed. Soon, she called Lu Jian from the investigation team. Has Fu Yanbai come out? The other party was silent for a moment. Then just as Lu Jian was about to speak, Bei Yunj hung up and called Xian Yuan directly. Max? It was Xian Yuan's first time being called by Max and he was a little flattered. Bei Yunj suppressed the impatience in her voice. Help me investigate someone now. She really knew how to make use of resources. Max, you've only accepted 1 case. I've settled all the 8 cases you gave me yesterday. Bei Yunj's words stunned Xian Yuan. Even the elders did not dare to accept those 8 cases. He had only given them to her as a last resort. She had actually completed it. How did you? My friend is missing. I'm looking for her. Bei Yunj's voice was a little impatient. Missing? Give me her information. Xian Yuan said quickly. About half an hour later, Xian Yuan gave the results of Song Yao's investigation to Bei Yunj. It was a kidnapping. At the pier, behind them were black and blue waves. The sky was not considered blue and was dark and gray. It made one feel depressed. Don't waste your energy. I'll wait for him to come and ransom her today. A fat man in his 40s was wearing a blue shirt that was not considered clean, and was a little slovenly. He smoked a cigarette, a cold smile in his eyes. Rich people are indeed different. They have 2 women by their side. But this is interesting. The fat man sized up Song Yao, who was pursing her lips, and Yu Ling, who was beside her with a frightened expression. Who do you think he will save with the money? I only gave him a chance to save 1 person. Song Yao's gentle eyes were expressionless. She only glanced at the phone not far away, took a deep breath, and closed her eyes. However, Yuling glanced at Song Yao and a trace of ridicule flashed past her eyes. Fu Yanbai would come and save her? Wishful thinking. Brother, if you let me go, Yanbai will give you a lot of money. This woman. She's not important to Fu Yanbai at all. Yuling finally said what she wanted to say in her heart. However, the fat man only glanced at Yuling, his eyes cold. Then his attention was attracted by Song Yao's ringtone. The fat man raised his eyebrows. Your friend is very concerned about you. She called more than Fu Yanbai today. Aren't you going to beg me to get someone else to ransom you? Brother, was the person who called you yesterday your child? Song Yao suddenly asked. It's none of your business. The fat man's expression turned ferocious as if he was right. If you tie me up, what will happen to your son in the future? Song Yao's words made the fat man waver. It's none of your business. The Fu Corporation owes me a life. If it weren't for them, my wife wouldn't have died. Fu Yanbai should pay his debt. The fat man said through gritted teeth. Haven't you thought about what kind of life that child will lead without parents in the future? Song Yao asked. The fat man's body stiffened, but his eyes were filled with hatred. Suddenly, a limousine appeared not far away. 7 to 8 people walked out. I'm here to ransom him. Let him go. Fu Yanbai threw the suitcase on the ground and got someone to open it. The suitcase was full of cash. Then, who is young Master Fu planning to ransom? The fat man quickly entered a state of alert and said with a smile. Don't act rashly. I have a bomb tied to me. If you're not afraid of everyone dying together, be more obedient. End of chapter. Chapter 901. These words immediately made those bodyguards nervous. They did not expect him to be a lunatic. 10 million yuan to save one person. I'll give you 50 million yuan to let both of them go. The moment Fu Yanbai finished speaking, the fat man laughed. President Fu, is there such a good thing? You can only choose one of the two women. Yanbai, save me. Yuling cried and shouted, making Fu Yanbai's heart clench. Aling. Fu Yanbai was flustered, but he calmed himself down. I'm warning you. If you dare to touch her, I'll definitely kill you. Fu Yanbai's expression was ruthless. President Fu, there's no point in threatening me. Why don't you choose? Hearing this, Fu Yanbai took a deep breath, clenched his fists, and shifted his gaze to Song Yao. Song Yao was very quiet, as if she was not looking forward to his help. This understanding made Fu Yanbai inexplicably frustrated. But no matter what, he could not let Yuling down. That was the woman he swore to protect. Fu Yanbai pursed his lips and said coldly, let Yuling go. These words made Yuling happy and excited. In the next moment, she could not help but look at Song Yao, a trace of smugness flashing past her eyes. So what if she was the elder young miss of the Song family for so many years? Didn't they still have to give in to her? Now they even had to give in to her. Hearing this, before the fat man could react, his phone suddenly rang. He frowned and saw that it was an unknown number. After answering the call, he turned on the speaker and threw it aside. Song Yao is in your hands. A familiar clear voice made Song Yao freeze and look up instinctively. Yunj. Everything that had happened in the past 2 days had not made her afraid, but when she heard this voice, she could not help but feel a lump in her throat. Who are you? The fat man frowned. Why do you have my number? Yuling could also tell that this was Bei Yunj's voice and her eyes instantly panicked. Would anything happen to Bei Yunj if she came? Don't talk nonsense with me. If anything happens to Song Yao, all of you will be in trouble. Bei Yunj's voice was filled with a lazy smile, but there was a hint of ruthlessness. Yunj, Song Yao couldn't control her tears in an instant and her voice softened. However, she heard Bei Yunj say in a natural tone, we've found Auntie Song. Wait a little longer, I'll take you home later. Allow. Before Song Yao could finish speaking, Bei Yunj hung up. My friend has a grudge against him. Don't touch my friend. Song Yao said. At this time, Fu Yanbai, who was not far away, also received a call from Bei Yunj. Fu Yanbai, it's your business if you want to spoil someone. If you dare to let anything happen to Song Yao today, Yu Ling and the Fu family will die with her. Bei Yunj couldn't hide the coldness in her voice. She hung up the phone and Fu Yanbai's face darkened. When Bei Yunj had gotten him into the police station, old Master Fu had not been of much help. He did not know if the person from the Hor family would stop Bei Yunj. But if something were to happen, he would be able to protect Bei Yunj. He could be fearless, but this also concerned his family. A dark look flashed past Fu Yanbai's eyes as he said to the fat man, "Let me think about it carefully. It seems like this girl's friend is quite useful." The fat man smiled and did not care about Bei Yunj's threat. At this moment, Yu Ling panicked completely. How could Fu Yanbai hesitate? Why didn't he let Song Yao die? End of chapter. Chapter 902. Has he been brought out? Bei Yunj hung up and asked calmly. Yes, he's here. Lu Zhongzhou pulled out the little boy behind him. His eyes were dark and bright and his skin was sickly pale. He was still wearing a hospital gown and looked at Bei Yunj fearfully. Bei Yunj looked at him calmly. After a while, he squatted down slowly and pulled the child over. He's so young? A strong wind was blowing at the pier. Fu Yanbai pursed his lips and looked at Yu Ling, who was crying breathlessly in front of him, and then at Song Yao, who was frowning. Song Yao was probably worried about Bei Yunj. A trace of ridicule flashed past Fu Yanbai's eyes. Okay, the time I gave you is up. You should tell me who you chose. The fat man took out a gun and pointed it at Yu Ling. Yu Ling was so frightened that she cried even louder. Yanbai, don't you like me? Save me and let me live. Let's get married, okay? The fat man was expressionless and said with a smile. It seems like President Fu likes this girl in the white dress a lot too. Fu Yanbai frowned and could not be bothered to explain. However, hatred appeared in Yu Ling's eyes as she pursed her lips and looked at Song Yao. Was Song Yao pretending to be like this to make Fu Yanbai pity her? She had really underestimated her. I have nothing to do with President Fu. If we have to, he can't wait for me to die. After Song Yao finished speaking, the fat man was very surprised. Really? President Fu, I'll give you another chance. If you don't say it, these two beautiful girls will die. The fat man held the gun and aimed it at Yu Ling. Yu Ling could not help but scream. Fu Yanbai, save me. Fu Yanbai panicked and immediately said in a low voice, let go of Yu Ling. Instantly, Yu Ling heaved a sigh of relief. Song Yao, who was beside her, was not too surprised. She only looked at the sky and thought of Mrs. Song and Bei Yunj. If she left, would anyone take care of her mother in the future? What about Ge? Or would she be sad? Song Yao closed her eyes and opened them again. She saw the fat man untie Yu Ling as promised. But in the next moment, not far away, cars suddenly appeared one after another, directly surrounding the entire pier. The first to descend was a burly man, followed by a beautiful girl. At the back, the team that seemed to be strictly disciplined also came down. Where is Song Yao? Bei Yunj licked her lips and walked to Fu Yanbai's side. I choose Yu Ling. Fu Yanbai's tone was normal. He turned around. Song Yao has no choice. I have to do this. Bei Yunj fell silent for a moment. Subsequently, Bei Yunj's beautiful eyes curved into crescents and she said with hostility, it seems that young Master Fu didn't learn his lesson after what happened last time. Before the 7 to 8 bodyguards could react, Bei Yunj's tone was cold as she said calmly, tie Fu Yanbai up. Fu Yanbai said sternly, sorry for the offense. After they finished speaking, they tied up the group of bodyguards as well. At this moment, no one noticed that Yu Ling suddenly walked towards Song Yao. A trace of cruelty and hatred flashed past her eyes. She wanted to push her into the sea. In this way, Bei Yunj had no choice. However, Song Yao had already noticed Yu Ling's strange actions. Instead, she rolled to the side and leaned against the railing, looking at Yu Ling coldly. After the fat man noticed the commotion, he grabbed Yu Ling's hair. You're quite King ruthless. Are you the same as the Fu family? He suddenly laughed, making people scared. Why don't we die together today? P.S. Today's update is over. We'll continue tomorrow. I'm almost done with the outline. I'll update more when I'm done. You guys are really amazing. Number 1 on the monthly votes list. There are still 10 days left. Be good and let Master Pei stabilize the rankings. End of this chapter. Chapter 903. Instantly, Yuling looked terrified, but her face was pale as she begged for mercy in a trembling voice. "Let me go. Please let me go." The fat man laughed coldly. Then, just as he was about to ignite the bomb on him, and let these people die with him, all of a sudden, the girl's clear and melodious voice rang out unhurriedly. "Are you sure you want to die together?" As soon as she finished speaking, before the fat man could react, he heard a familiar voice. "Daddy." The fat man's face paled and he turned around instinctively. He saw the boy standing beside Bei Yunj. "Ah Chun." The fat man's voice was trembling, before he looked at Bei Yunj fiercely. "What on earth do you want to do?" He had already asked his friend to cross out his son's information. Even the police would find it difficult to find him. However, he did not expect her to find Ah Chun. "I don't care about other people's matters. But you have to return my person to me," Bei Yunj said slowly. Fu Yanbai's expression darkened. "Bei Yunj, isn't Yuling's life a life? Can you tell him to be quiet?" Bei Yunj's cold voice sounded. Suddenly, everyone saw the person who had tied Fu Yanbai up punch Fu Yanbai a few times. They were all slaps to his face. Even the fat man did not expect this unbelievably young girl to be so ruthless. She even dared to hit and tie up Fu Yanbai. Bei Yunj. It was Fu Yanbai's first time being hit by someone. His face was burning with pain. He gritted his teeth and stared at Bei Yunj. Why did he think that Bei Yunj was like Yuling back then? There was no other person as arrogant and ruthless as Bei Yunj. Then Bei Yunj laughed lazily. Her beautiful eyes were cold and her tone was still arrogant and casual. "Young Master Fu is quite interesting. Are you teaching me how to do things?" "The one opposite, I'll give you a chance. If you let Song Yao go now, I promise that no one will hurt little Ah Chin," Bei Yunj said slowly. The fat man looked at the little boy beside Bei Yunj, and his heart wavered. He pursed his lips and said in a low voice, "Miss Pei, I hope you're telling the truth." After saying this, he untied the rope on Song Yao's leg, and let her go to the opposite side. Yuling's eyes were filled with fear. "No. Didn't I say that Fu Yanbai would let me go if he brought the ransom? Why did you let Song Yao go? You're Fu Yanbai's woman." The fat man had never thought of letting go of Fu Yanbai's woman. "I'm not. I have nothing to do with Fu Yanbai." Yuling screamed hysterically. "Back then, in order to escape from his imprisonment, I tricked that stupid woman into coming to the Fu family to find me. I was also the one who drugged that stupid woman and used her identity to escape. I don't want to stay by Fu Yanbai's side. I deliberately faked my death to get rid of him." As soon as he finished speaking, Song Yao stopped in her tracks and Fu Yanbai froze. Therefore, was what Song Yao said back then true? But he did not believe her and thought that she had caused Yuling's death? Fu Yanbai looked at Song Yao instinctively, only to see that her expression was calm and there were no other emotions. In an instant, an indescribable emotion rose in Fu Yanbai's heart, making him almost panic. He claimed that he had never let anyone down, but now, standing in front of Song Yao, he was deeply sinful. "By the shore," Bei Yunj said slowly, "I gave you a pretty face for nothing." Song Yao was speechless. "P.S. Master Pei, I'm not even a human and you're teaching me how to do things?" End of this chapter. Chapter 904. However, just as the fat man was too lazy to care about Yuling, no one thought that Yuling would hate Bei Yunj and Song Yao so much. She suddenly reached out to snatch the fat man's gun. At that moment, with a bang, a gunshot sounded. The moment she saw the gun go off, Bei Yunj was quick and immediately reached out to pull Song Yao over. However, Song Yao seemed to have known what Yuling would do and instinctively stood in front of Bei Yunj. "Song Yao." Bei Yunj's heart tightened and she immediately hugged Song Yao. She saw blood flowing out of her shoulder and dyeing it red. In the depths of her eyes, there seemed to be a dark red color that could not be suppressed. She looked a little dark and evil. Song Yao looked up and saw that Bei Yunj's condition was not right. She calmed her breathing quietly, but there was a thin layer of sweat on her forehead. When she smiled, she revealed her canine teeth. "It's fine. It doesn't hurt very much." However, with that said, Song Yao felt dizzy and gradually lost consciousness. "Miss Pei, get someone to bring your friend to the hospital." The voice of the guards behind made Bei Yunj regain her senses. I'll leave her to you. She hid the coldness in her eyes, but her tone was even scarier. After Bei Yunj asked him to carry Song Yao away, the little boy beside her suddenly grabbed her hand. Sister, it wasn't my father who shot her. It was that sister. Sometimes, a child's intuition was the most accurate. The current Bei Yunj was inexplicably scary. Bei Yunj walked towards the fat man and Yuling panicked. Why aren't you killing her? She's a crazy woman. Yuling had a feeling, if no one stopped Bei Yunj would really kill her. You. Before the fat man could finish speaking, the gun in his hand was suddenly snatched away. It was so fast that he could not react. Bei Yunj loaded the bullet skillfully. In the next moment, everyone heard a gunshot. Yuling screamed in pain. Everyone looked to the side and saw that Yuling's leg was bleeding. Bei Yunj, stop. After saying this, the guards next to him really used something to stuff Fu Yanbai's mouth. On the pier, Bei Yunj smirked and squatted down again. His smile did not reach his eyes. Do you know what's the most abundant in this area? Before Yuling could react, she heard Bei Yunj say cheerfully, Great white shark. Hearing this, Yuling felt a chill run down her spine and her scalp went numb. Her eyes were gradually filled with fear. She held her leg that could not move and shook her head frantically. No. You can't do this to me. Yanbai, save me. Yuling saw that among the people present, only Fu Yanbai could save her. But when she turned around, Fu Yanbai was already tied up. You wanted to push Song Yao down just now, right? Bei Yunj's eyes curved. After that, before Yuling could say anything, Bei Yunj tied her up and threw her into the sea. In less than 10 minutes, the smell of blood spread. Yuling struggled in the sea, sinking and floating up. Then, she really saw the shadows of large sharks in the sea. Her eyes were filled with fear, and she immediately struggled up with all her might. Sharks! Help! Cough! Help! Yuling's eyes were filled with fear. While her body felt uncomfortable, the pressure on her heart was even greater. Then when she looked at the indifferent people on the shore, she had a trauma for the first time. Chapter 905. Yuling struggled with all her might, but she saw the sharks getting closer and closer to her. Suddenly, she saw a white shark suddenly open its bloody mouth at her, almost scaring Yuling to the point of fainting. But in the next moment, the sound of a bullet rang out. The white shark jumped and patted its body violently, as if it couldn't bear the pain in its eyes. The white shark's blood also dyed the sea red. At this moment, on the shore, Bei Yunj slowly operated the gun in his hand that wasn't very powerful. A few minutes later, Yuling was dragged ashore in a sorry state. She couldn't feel her legs anymore, but her entire body was trembling. She didn't know if it was because of the white shark or because of Bei Yunj in front of her. This person was simply a demon. Is it fun? Bei Yunj walked in front of her. Her beautiful eyes curved, but the hostility in her eyes was still terrifying. She was all smiles. Yuling shivered and shook her head desperately. Even Fu Yanbai was treated like that. She didn't dare to provoke this person anymore. Bei Yunj half squatted in front of her. In the future, Miss Yu will still have a chance to play. But my marksmanship might not be accurate anymore. Just now, if Bei Yunj's shot didn't hit the white shark, then she would definitely be buried in the fish's stomach. Yuling's entire body was trembling. She had to stay far away from Bei Yunj. She had to stay far away from Bei Yunj. In the end, Fu Yanbai and Yuling were both thrown into the hospital. A few days later, at the Computing Institute, Bei Yunj held the self-criticism letter that had been revised more than 10 times in her hand and stood lazily in front of Yu Guang, Zhong Xinglin and Nancy. Must I read it? Zhong Xinglin felt sorry for Bei Yunj and couldn't bear to look at her. But this time, the person sent by the higher-ups to educate Bei Yunj was Professor Yu Guang, the former director of the first research institute of the Ministry of National Defense. He went abroad to beat up the guest of honor, and threw her into the sea when he returned. If he didn't do some ideological education, this person could poke a hole in the sky. Okay. She began to recite emotionlessly. As a member of the country's scientific research, I should not be impulsive and impulsive. The more Bei Yunj read the 3,000-word self-reflection, the more lazy she became. She almost leaned on the table behind her and said perfunctorily, I should restrain myself and devote myself to the scientific research of my motherland. I should make my motherland proud of me. When she read this sentence, Bei Yunj froze, but she still forced herself to finish reading it calmly. Then, she glanced at Si Qingyan coldly. Si Qingyan suppressed his laughter and avoided Bei Yunj's gaze, but he could not help but cover his stomach. Looking at Bei Yunj's unruly appearance and reading such a self-reflection, she was really too cute. Previously, she had submitted her reflection more than 10 times but had not passed, so she asked Si Qingyan to change it. However, he did not expect that he would change the self-criticism letter to be so emotional. Bei Yunj read the rest of the content. The more it was written, the more emotional it became. She stopped reading. Finished reading? Yu Guang asked. Bei Yunj did not even bat an eyelid. Almost. I remember that the content of your self-reflection also said, maintain friendship and serve the people in the future. When you are needed, you are also willing to take on the role and become an honorable volunteer? Yu Guang asked. Bei Yunj. Yes. Si Qingyan, you're finished. This is just nice. I'll give you a chance to redeem yourself. Yu Guang nodded in satisfaction. Bei Yunj. In fact, the matter this time had already been made known to the higher-ups. In order to protect Bei Yunj, Zhong Shenglin focused on Bei Yunj's S-rank project this year. This also made the higher-ups see that she was young and had many problems with the evaluation, and be lenient this time. Of course, there were also many scientific research friends who were on good terms with Zhong Shenglin, as well as researchers who liked Bei Yunj to begin with, who also spoke up for Bei Yunj, who hadn't been young and impetuous. However, the higher-ups still gave the following measures to deal with Bei Yunj's matter this time. Self-reflection and redeem yourself. Yu Guang snorted. Why? You don't want to volunteer? Do you want to go to jail for a few days? Zhong Shenglin couldn't help but get angry. Yu Guang, can you be gentler to my Gu-er? Yu Guang. Actually, Yu Guang also liked the girl in front of him. Although she had committed a lot of crimes, her feelings for the country and the big picture were not something she could have at her age. But who knew, when Bei Yunj heard this, she looked up at him. Can I? There was also some yearning. Professor Yu, you don't have to be lenient with me. Bei Yunj suddenly smiled and added leisurely, it will make me arrogant and let down the country's nurturing. Yu Guang. With Bei Yunj's methods and martial arts skills, even if she went to jail for a few days, she would probably not be the one suffering. Then go and nurture the country's flower buds in advance. Bei Yunj. Seeing that Yu Guang was writing the volunteer certificate for her, she still struggled. Professor Yu, I still have to take the college entrance examination. It's okay. Which university do you want to enter? You can just say it in the group, Yu Guang said slowly. They had a research group, and the principals of the top 30 universities in the country were all in it. Bei Yunj. However, the principal of Yin University has already invited Si Qingyan and Old Zhong to a few meals. I think you'll have to enter Yin University, Yu Guang said. Bei Yunj. How long will you be a volunteer for? Before you graduate from high school. Anyway, you have nothing to do in high school. Bei Yunj. Yu Guang took out another card and handed it to Bei Yunj. Gu-er, you're the focus of the country's nurturing. You have to be upright. Bei Yunj. This was very difficult. At the hospital. Today, Song Yao had woken up and Bei Yunj was feeding her porridge. Neither of them spoke. Song Yao drank a few mouthfuls and felt inexplicably guilty. Gu-er, is Yuling all right? She was afraid that Bei Yunj would kill Yuling because of her. How could Yuling be qualified to be Bei Yunj's stain? Bei Yunj looked up at her. Her eyes were clear. Do you know who you're asking? If you cripple Yuling, you still have to take responsibility. Song Yao pursed her lips. She's not worthy. You have to take responsibility, Bei Yunj said slowly. Song Yao's heart tightened. What's wrong? I'll go to Hengda for a vacation in 2 days. I won't continue studying. After Bei Yunj said this, Song Yao's heart turned cold. She thought that Hengda had persuaded Bei Yunj to leave. Is it because of the Fu family? No, I don't have time to study. Bei Yunj added. I'll keep my student status. I'll take the college entrance examination when the time comes. But is it okay if I don't take the year 3 classes and go straight to the college entrance examination? Song Yao asked worriedly. Bei Yunji's lips curled up and she placed the bowl on the table. She supported her cheek lazily with one hand and her beautiful eyes were clear as she leaned against her leg and asked, Tiantian, do you want to tutor me? End of chapter. Chapter 906. Song Yao thought about it and felt that something was wrong. Did Bei Yunji need her to tutor her? If it wasn't for Bei Yunji, she wouldn't have gotten first place in the competition last time. I still have a part-time job. I don't have time to tutor you. Song Yao was wearing a hospital gown. Her fair palms were placed on her knees and her black hair was draped loosely over her shoulders. She looked gentle and cute. But who knew, the person beside her asked lazily. Is your part-time job more important than me? Song Yao was speechless. It was hard to find someone who was more unreasonable than her. After being pestered for a long time, Song Yao could only say, I'll tutor you when I return to school. Okay. Bei Yunji's eyes curved in satisfaction. Hengda. Bei Yunji had just returned when Chu Zhixing and Lu Yuanxi welcomed her in the canteen. Well done, Master Pei. You took half a month off and played for more than a month. Lu Yuanxi had a hand in his pocket lazily. I'm here to apply for leave this time too. After Bei Yunji finished speaking, Chu Zhixing and Lu Yuanxi looked at each other and asked, What are you doing again? Bei Yunji said, Serving the people. Lu Yuanxi and Chu Zhixing were speechless. Did she go to the hospital to have her brain checked behind their backs? How long will you be away for this time? Chu Zhixing asked. Bei Yunji raised her eyebrows. I'll be back for the college entrance examination and won't be coming to class. Lu Yuanxi could not help cursing. Master Pei, could it be that you were expelled from school and didn't dare to tell us because you were afraid that we would be sad? Soon Chu Zhixing stared fixedly at Bei Yunji. It was as if he felt that this answer was very reliable. Bei Yunji was speechless. In the next moment, Bei Yunji felt a gaze on her and turned around to see Hiyu, who had made a bet with her back then, looking at her. Why hasn't this person been expelled yet? Bei Yunji asked from the bottom of her heart. Hiyu, who heard it not far away, was speechless. Lu Yuanxi chuckled. He's third on the cohort list. We can't wait to serve him. Hiyu's expression didn't look too good when he heard this. Originally, he thought that he could get first place, but he didn't expect that he wouldn't even get second place, only third place. On the other hand, Bei Yunji, who had gotten first place, was only 1 point away from getting full marks for her essay. Only by getting first place could he woo Song Yao. But wasn't this number 1 a little too strong? Bei Yunji, remember this. I will definitely defeat you. After that, Hiyu seemed to be afraid of being caught by Bei Yunji and immediately ran away. Lu Yuanxi and the others. Where did this Chinibu come from? Let's not talk about it. I'm going to apply for a leave of absence. Bei Yunji was about to leave when she suddenly heard someone shouting behind her. Bei Yunji. Bei Yunji turned her head and raised her eyebrows. Brother Chu and I are both going to Yin University. Lu Yuanxi's lips curled up unconsciously. His low and casual voice was filled with the unique magnetism of a young man. Don't get it wrong, Master Pei. Bei Yunji was a little surprised. She glanced at the two of them and chuckled. It can't be wrong. However, after such a long suspension, the principal's expression did not look too good. It was only when Bei Yunji called and asked Yu Guang to video call the principal that the principal trembled. He did not expect that the person who had suspended Bei Yunji was Professor Yu Guang. Yu Guang sat on the sofa in the office. Behind him was the Department of Defense's merit wall. The principal could not say a word. After hanging up the call, he immediately issued Bei Yunji's leave request. Bei Yunji, the college entrance examination is not a joke. Although the principal did not like Bei Yunji, he did not want to see Bei Yunji take the wrong path. Chapter 907. Bei Yunji raised her eyebrows, a little surprised by the principal's sudden concern. However, looking at his dark expression, it was obvious that he did not approve of her dropping out of school. Bei Yunji smirked. Thank you, principal. The principal paused for a moment before he looked up and accidentally met her eyes. For the first time, he looked at this student in front of him seriously. It seemed like he had a lot of prejudice against her in the past. The principal said in a low voice, "If you don't do well, come back and repeat your studies. It's not your first time anyway." Bae-yunj was speechless. These words, there was another meaning. Hongda will always have your back. Seeing Bae-yunj pack her things and leave in the afternoon, the people in Class 7 were very surprised and went forward to ask. After Bae-yunj explained, she left with her things. At the same time, the people outside were also discussing. "Hey, have you heard? Bae-yunj seems to have dropped out of school." Dropped out? She's in her 3rd year of high school. What is she thinking? Another person was also very shocked. Who knows? Anyway, it's not like she hasn't been retained before. Another person sneered. I say, maybe he'll be persuaded to leave. The school was too embarrassed to announce it and asked Bae-yunj to leave by herself. That can't be. Her results are so good. The girl beside him hesitated. So what if her results are good? She didn't return to school for more than a month last time. She must have angered the teacher. Besides, who knows if her results are real or fake? The people from Class 1 laughed coldly and said, "How can anyone go from a bad student to a top student? I think there might be some dirty deal behind this." At this moment, Ling Jiwei, who heard this in the corridor, immediately called Qin Yojiao. "Hello? What's the matter?" Qin Yojiao had just finished practicing the piano, and her tone was a little cold. "Did you know that Bae-yunj came to drop out of school today?" Ling Jiwei could not hide the excitement in her eyes. "I heard that she might have been expelled to give the Qin family some face." Qin Yojiao was surprised and smiled quickly. "There's such a thing? It seems like a lot of things happened when I was overseas. However, Weiwei, I saw Bae-yunj in Neely. Our nation. She went overseas recently." Ling Jiwei was in disbelief. Qin Yojiao said casually, "Yes, I met her at the International Musicians Association. She's a B-rank member." She sighed again. "However, she offended our governor's daughter. Yesterday, the governor came to her door and questioned whether she got into the International Musicians Association through the back door, and got a high rating. There's such a thing." When Ling Jiwei heard this, she became even more excited. Then what did the International Musicians Association say? The thought of being able to destroy Bae-yunj made her extremely happy. "I'm not sure yet. However, I saw Bae-yunj participating in the selection, but her name wasn't on the list," Qin Yojiao said. Ling Jiwei sneered. "With her standard, she can enter the International Musicians Association. I think she wants whatever you have, Jiao Jiao. Disgusting. You're such a smart person." So, it's very likely that she took a leave of absence this time because of the International Musicians Association. She's avoiding the limelight. Qin Yuxiao smiled coquettishly, but her eyes were filled with sarcasm. "Lilo, dream on. When the time comes, I will definitely expose her true colors." Ling Jiwei's expression was dark. "Don't worry. Since she took a leave of absence, she should be back for the college entrance examination. It's better to explain everything when everyone is here," Qin Yojiao said with a smile. She could not wait to return to China and see Bae-yunj being despised by everyone. Hongda's school motto, "Perseverance is the most important thing in life." End of chapter. Chapter 908. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations choosing Master Pei was being despised? Half a month later. At the Computing Institute. Zhong Xinglin looked at the volunteer card that Yu Guang had prepared for Bae-yunj, and couldn't help but dislike it. Name, Bae-yunj Organization. National Defense Research Institute. A fox's tail can't be hidden, Zhong Xinglin said coldly. Since when did his successor become a member of the National Defense Research Institute? Elder Zhong. Bae-yunj had just finished tutoring Tich and Jasmine. She didn't have time to take off her white coat and looked much colder. How have you been these few days? Zhong Xinglin asked. Bae-yunj didn't hesitate. Not bad. In the beginning, she was stuffed into all kinds of anti-drug and anti-evil activities. Wherever there was a shortage of manpower, she would be stuffed there. But this month she was arranged to enter a research institute. Bei Yunj had never done anything in her previous life, but in this life, she was clearly arranged to do it. Work hard. I don't think you'll be able to do it for long. At the beginning of the year, I'll apply for it, so that you can focus on the project. Zhong Shenglin felt sorry for Bei Yunj. Okay, I'll go to the research institute first. Bei Yunj smiled. After changing out of her white coat, she left the computing institute. CI7 branch. What does this mean? Why did my client's order go to Max? Qinglu walked in angrily in her high heels. Her eyes were gloomy. I didn't touch the back end. Jiang Song said faintly. It was your client who changed your mind and chose Max. How is this possible? Qinglu gritted her teeth and questioned. That was her big client, and had worked with her many times. Whether she could be promoted to the headquarters this year depended on him. You can check it yourself. In order to change people, this client chose to pay 5 million yuan for lost work, and added a price to choose Max. Jiang Song sipped his tea calmly. Added a price? Qinglu's expression turned even uglier. Jiang Song raised his eyebrows. Max's value isn't that low. Her order is 3 times that of yours. Green Heron's face darkened. Who the hell was this Max? Not long after, Qinglu left the station angrily, but she received a call. Bo Jinxiao asked hesitantly, Cousin, can you get that person to make a new reagent again? You think I'm living a good life? Do you think it's easy to get that reagent? It's been so long and you still can't take down the Chu clan. How dare you make so many promises to me back then? Qinglu sneered. After hanging up the phone, she sat in the car with a dark expression. Yun City First Research Institute. Bei Yunj took her volunteer pass and came to a spacious office without any obstacles. There was a young man inside. The young man glanced at Bei Yunj, and a touch of surprise flashed across his eyes. Then his gaze quickly fell on her volunteer ID, and a touch of disappointment flashed across his eyes. They were not the students from Yin University's laboratory. I'm a handyman. The young man shouted Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj paused for a moment before replying lazily. Yes, what's the matter? The young man was speechless. This new handyman seemed to be a little arrogant. Are you a volunteer? The young man asked hesitantly. Was this person really not here to cause trouble? Otherwise. Bei Yunj's concise words already showed her impatience. The young man was speechless. What were those people thinking? How could someone with such a temper be a volunteer? Besides, this person didn't look very caring. Why was she a volunteer? P.S. Those who have monthly votes and recommendation tickets remember to vote for Master Pay. End of chapter. Chapter 909. You. Why are you volunteering? The young man couldn't help but ask in a tone of disapproval. Bei Yunj looked up. Why are you so nosy? The young man was speechless. Okay, this was a nuisance. But fortunately he had applied for 5 volunteers this time. The young man took a deep breath and looked back at the task on the computer. Go and print out this information. Don't appear in front of me for an hour. Bei Yunj accepted the mission leisurely and slowly went out for a walk. She didn't look like a volunteer at all. Until an hour later, Bei Yunj returned to the office and placed the document on Ding Kuixing's desk. She casually glanced at the content on his computer. It looked like a list. She even recognized some of the people on the list. When Bei Yunj looked away, she happened to meet Ding Kuixing's eyes. Are you a student? Are you in high school or university? Ding Kuixing asked. Bei Yunj said slowly. I'm in my 3rd year of high school. Ding Kuixing was speechless. Were all children nowadays so careless about their future? How could she volunteer at such a critical time? Bei Yunj saw that Ding Kuixing wanted to say something to her again, so she immediately turned around and left. She obviously didn't want to listen to his nonsense. Ding Kuixing was speechless. Why would such a problematic student appear here? Until noon, when Bei Yunj had no choice but to come to the office again, she saw that Ding Kuixing was still looking at the list. She said seriously, Professor Ding, if there's nothing else, I'll go home and study first. Wait a minute. Ding Kuixing called out to Bei Yunj. Do you know this group of people? A dark look flashed past Bei Yunj's eyes. Bei Yunj did know most of the people on the list. They were all in a few group chats. Just as Bei Yunj was about to respond, she heard Ding Kuixing laugh. I must be crazy to ask you if you know them. Bei Yunj was speechless. So how can I invite these important researchers? Ding Kuixing rubbed his eyebrows and muttered to himself. Why did you invite them? Bei Yunj lowered her eyes and glanced at the name list. She even saw her name. It was one of the few invitees that was bolded in red. I'm planning a global exhibition of innovative technology projects. Ding Kuixing furrowed his brows. If these great gods didn't participate, the others would be even more unwilling to participate in this technology exhibition. Bei Yunj said without hesitation. You can invite an important core candidate first, and then talk to some people who are interested in this person. And so on. If you use some special benefits to get them to help you promote it, you should be able to invite a lot of people. But I might not be able to invite any powerful core members. Ding Kuixing frowned. Don't be so resolute. Bei Yunj calmly opened the bottle of mineral water. Give them some time to think about it. It's up to them whether they want to come or not. Those who are willing to come may not only have one goal, so you just have to arrange the science and technology exhibition well, and make them satisfied with the second goal. Ding Kuixing was stunned for a long time before he looked at her. How do you know this? This didn't seem like something that a senior high school student should know. Bei Yunj said naturally. I was volunteering at an anti-pyramid scheme event 2 days ago. I heard that pyramid schemes do this. Ding Kuixing was speechless. This was the first time he had seen someone apply what he had learned. End of chapter. Chapter 9-10. Ding Kuixing held it in for a long time, and could only nod calmly. Well, I didn't go to the event for nothing. Bei Yunj responded perfunctorily, drank the mineral water again, and walked to the side. Then, Ding Kuixing was thinking. Then who should I invite to be my core candidate? Half a minute later, Ding Kuixing's eyes suddenly lit up. I got it. I can invite them. As soon as he finished speaking, Ding Kuixing suddenly heard Bei Yunj, who was beside him, cough suddenly. He almost lost his grip on the mineral water bottle in his hand. He was deep in thought. Look, even you are so excited. Others must be very excited too. Bei Yunj was speechless. Bei Yunj did not expect that this trap would fall on her. Ding Kuixing chattered on. However, there is a high chance that you won't be able to invite them. Such a super genius will definitely be heavily protected. They will be arranged in the top research lab to work on the happiest projects. How would they have time to come to my science and technology exhibition? Bei Yunj was speechless. Your name is Bei Yunj? Ding Kuixing finally remembered to look at Bei Yunj's work card. However, when he saw her unit, he could not help but be stunned. The first research institute of the Ministry of National Defense? Back then, he wanted to enter the Research Institute of the Ministry of National Defense, but did not succeed. What was going on with this third-year student? I'm not. After Bei Yunj denied it, she glanced at the other volunteers at the door. I'm going to help. Ding Kuixing felt that there was something wrong with this student. Until the students of Yin University's laboratory arrived. A few people sat in the conference hall. Professor Ding, Teacher Ning told us to work hard for you. A few of them looked confident. The spots to follow Professor Ding this time were also snatched by various laboratories. After all, Professor Ding's science and technology exhibition this time was said to be very important. At that time, they would be able to meet many great gods in the scientific research field, and stand out in front of those people. Ding Kuixing nodded. I heard that you have a student called Chu Anlin? Professor, I am Chu Anlin. A pretty girl smiled. She had the demeanor of a lady from a wealthy family. Not bad. I heard that you entered the Academy of Science this year. You're amazing, Ding Kuixing praised. Chu Anlin just smiled embarrassedly and said nothing. The people around her immediately teased. Anlin skipped a grade to get here. The youngest junior sister in our laboratory is more advanced than all of us in the Academy of Science. That's right. She's good-looking and outstanding. She's a genius. The surrounding praises made Chu Anlin shake her head modestly. Everyone still takes care of me. Subsequently, Just as Chu Enlan turned her head and thought that Ding Kuixing would continue speaking, he suddenly stood up. She shouted at the top of her lungs, "Pei Yunj! Come to the meeting!" Next, Ding Kuixing saw Bei Yunj outside the window and paused for a moment. He pretended not to hear anything and prepared to leave. A few minutes later, Bei Yunj was brought in and sat next to Ding Kuixing. "All right, let's continue the meeting," Ding Kuixing said with satisfaction. The students in Yin University's laboratory couldn't help but frown and look at each other. "Professor Ding, this is..." Ding Kuixing came back to his senses. "Oh, I forgot to introduce her. She's a volunteer student who came to help this time, Bei Yunj." One of the students asked thoughtfully, "May I know which school this student is from?" End of chapter. Chapter 9-11. Hengda High School. Bei Yunj glanced at them and said slowly. Suddenly one of them smiled and said, "High school? I think you're 19 or 20 years old. I thought you were already in your first or second year." He turned to look at Chu Anlin. "Lan Lan, you seem to be about the same age as this student." Chu Anlin only smiled faintly and glanced at Bei Yunj, not looking at her anymore. "I'm 20 years old. I'm slightly older than student Pei." With that said, there were also people who kept looking at Bei Yunj and Chu Anlin. Their intentions were obvious. They were about the same age, but one was already a graduate student while the other was still a high school student. "Let's talk about the content of this technology exhibition," Ding Kuixing interrupted them and said casually. When they were assigning tasks, they realized that the work that gave them the best chance to come into contact with those top researchers was in Bei Yunj's hands. Ding Kuixing would ask for Bei Yunj's opinion on many of the plans. They could not help frowning. Who was this volunteer? Including Chu Anlin, this was her first time sitting on the bench in front of the teacher. Chu Anlin pinched the pen in her hand and glanced at Bei Yunj. Her expression immediately changed into an indifferent one. No way. Why did Professor Ding give such an important matter to Bei Yunj? How is our Anlin not outstanding enough? She can't even compare to a volunteer. Before that person could finish speaking, someone pushed his arm, telling him to speak less. When he looked up again, he found that Chu Anlin's expression was not very good either. "Anlin, it's not a professional job. It's the same no matter who it is." With that said, Chu Anlin walked out. However, she did not expect to see a familiar figure with Bei Yunj. Song Yao had been discharged from the hospital, but because of the injury on her back, she could not work, so she came to deliver food to Bei Yunj. Under the magnolia tree, Song Yao paused. "You're volunteering here?" Bei Yunj answered carelessly. Song Yao was speechless. She had been overthinking. She had thought that Bei Yunj would delay the college entrance examination. He had almost forgotten how many immortals Bei Yunj knew in the academic world. Unintentionally, Song Yao's eyes met with someone not far away. "Chu Anlin," Song Yao said instinctively. Bei Yunj glanced at the cold-faced Chu Enlan. "Do you know her?" "I do." Song Yao thought for a while. "She doesn't like me very much." Bei Yunj didn't care and continued to eat. "I see." Song Yao's tone was still calm as she hugged the fruit box. She used to be friends with Yu Ling, but they seem to have fallen out because of Fu Yanbai. Bei Yunj raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect Fu Yanbai to be so popular. Back in the office, Bei Yunj sat in her seat and began to play the game naturally. The surrounding laboratory students looked at Bei Yunj with even more sarcastic expressions. She didn't know why Professor Ding would take a fancy to such a person. It was obvious that such a person was here to gain experience. With one look, it was obvious that he wasn't even qualified to enter Yin University. Soon, Ding Kuixing returned with a laptop. "Come over and have a meeting." Everyone gathered in the conference room and heard Ding Kuixing say, "I have a Professor Shui project on hand. There are some problems with the data. Which one of you is better at computing?" Someone immediately said, "Professor, Chu Anlin's undergraduate degree is physics and computing." End of this chapter. Chapter 9-12. Ding Kuixing was quite surprised. Not only had Chu Anlin skipped a grade at her age, but she had also obtained a double degree. "Then Enlan, take a look. Can you change the data for this thing?" Ding Kuixing asked. Chu Anlin looked at the data on the computer and smiled as she pushed her hair back. It shouldn't be difficult. I'll try my best. That's good. Ding Kuixing was relieved. He handed this project to Chu Anlin and continued to work on other matters. From the beginning to the end, Bei Yunj did not say a word. After the meeting ended, someone mocked. I thought that person should be very capable. She couldn't even raise any opinions in a meeting. Professor Ding didn't arrange any work for her either. TSK. She must be here to mess around. A few students in the laboratory seemed to be very dissatisfied with Ding Kuixing's importance to Bei Yunj. They said sourly, if I were her, I would definitely feel inferior seeing such an outstanding person like Enlan. In the office, Chu Anlin's progress was smooth at first, but her progress slowly stagnated. She frowned and had no clue for half an hour. Then the student beside her saw this situation. Enlan, is this project too difficult? You seem to have been stuck for a long time. Chu Anlin sensed that Ding Kuixing was also looking at her and immediately smiled. No. It's just that I feel that my friend seems to know more about this data conversion. He just did a similar project some time ago and his results were not bad. Enlan, are you going to ask Zhou Xing to help you? Instantly, the others became even more excited. Zhou Xing was a popular figure in the computing department of Yin University. Yes, he doesn't have anything on today. After Chu Anlin finished speaking, the others were envious. I knew it. The big boss only plays with the big boss. Ding Kuixing heaved a sigh of relief when he heard Chu Anlin's words. It was good that it could be solved. It was said that Professor Xue had been preparing for this project for a long time. If Chu Anlin could not solve it, he would probably have to be thick-skinned and calculate the people he borrowed. At this thought, he walked out with a cigarette and lighter, wanting to relax. However, he did not expect to see a familiar figure in the corridor. Brother Yan. Ding Kuixing called out to Si Qingyan excitedly, his eyes shining. However, the next moment, when Si Qingyan turned around to look at him, Ding Kuixing realized that Bei Yunj was talking to Si Qingyan. I'm going to get busy. After that, Bei Yunj left. Si Qingyan called him Master Pei, but Bei Yunj ignored him. The next moment, before Si Qingyan could turn around, he heard Ding Kuixing asking tentatively, Master Pei? Si Qingyan was shocked when he suddenly heard this. Then he immediately reacted. You're looking for me? Ding Kuixing was a little nervous. Brother Yan, there's a problem with Professor Xue's project. Can you help me take a look? No. Si Qingyan rejected him without hesitation. He was here to watch Bei Yunj volunteer, not to volunteer with Bei Yunj. But it's very difficult for us to modify that project, Ding Kuixing continued, unwilling to give up. Ding Kuixing, are you stupid? Bei Yunj is here, and you want me to change it? Si Qingyan suspected that Ding Kuixing's brain was crooked. Ding Kuixing was speechless. Only Si Qingyan could scold him like this. Si Qingyan and Ding Kuixing were about the same age. But one was already a full professor at a young age, and the other was still an associate professor. End of this chapter. Chapter 9:13. However, Ding Kuixing suddenly reacted. Wait, what do you mean by that? What did he mean by Bei Yunj was here, and he wanted him to change it? It means what I said. I gave you a cheat, but if you can't do the exhibition well, the higher-ups will definitely tear you apart. Si Qingyan chuckled. Bei Yunj was treated like a treasure by Zhong Shenglin at the Computing Institute, and didn't do anything for her. Now that she had finally been outsourced, Ding Kuixing, this fool, wouldn't make good use of it. Cheat! Ding Kuixing's mind was stuck. Bei Yunj is a cheat? When he regained his senses, Ding Kuixing continued. But Chu Anlin said that the conversion method for this project has to be used by Marcus. How can Bei Yunj know who Marcus is? What could a third-year student know? Si Qingyan. Then do you know who it is? Ding Kuixing immediately smiled. If I don't know who it is, would I still be here? She was a rising star in the scientific research field, a god who even dared to reject the Ferris Prize. However, the Chinese circle in our country liked her so much. It was said that Ferris had mailed the trophy to the Computing Institute, but it was still returned. The big boss's temper was indeed unpredictable. Si Qingyan. Then. Before Ding Kueisheng could speak, Si Qingyan handed the thing in his hand to Ding Kueisheng. This is what the old man asked me to bring to Bei Yunj. Remember to give it to her. With that said, once Si Qingyan completed his task, he prepared to leave. Ding Kueisheng could not stop him. Back in the office, Ding Kueisheng looked at Bei Yunj, who was watering the flowers outside the door, with a sense of scrutiny. Could it be that she was also a genius student? However, not long after, Ding Kueisheng saw Bei Yunj look around leisurely, and suddenly plucked the flowers planted by the director. Ding Kueisheng's face contorted. Whose F***king troublesome child was this? She even dared to pluck Director Tian's flowers? Bei Yunj, come in. Don't pluck them again. Do you hear me? Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows lazily when she realized that she had been discovered. This was exactly the same as what Bai Mingzhang had done in the past. If Dean Tian knew about this, he would definitely be furious. After Bai Mingzhang left, Bei Yunj came. Bei Yunj put down the watering can in her hand and twirled the small white flower around her index finger. She didn't feel guilty at all. He raised the wrong flower. Bei Yunj took it for granted. Ding Kueisheng put on a fake smile. How do you know that Principal Hua Tian has been raised wrongly? Bei Yunj. Tian Hejing had mentioned in the group that he was cultivating a type of flower that could replace rare herbs, but this flower was obviously different from what he had described. It was probably because Dean Tian was on a business trip and his assistant didn't notice, so he raised the ordinary small wildflowers as experimental plants. But she checked it again. Fortunately, the experimental flower had already sprouted. Ding Kueisheng took a deep breath. Hurry up and throw the flower away. Don't let the dean's assistant see it. Also, this is from Professor Si Qingyan. As soon as he finished speaking, it instantly attracted the attention of others. Si Qingyan. Wasn't that the young professor from the computer science department? Even Chu Anlin couldn't help but look over and realize that Ding Kueisheng had given Bei Yunj a box of chocolates. Why would Professor Si Qingyan give this person chocolates? Bei Yunj actually knew a professor from Yin University. Yes. Bei Yunj took it and placed it aside. End of chapter. Chapter 914. You know Si Qingyan? Ding Kueisheng could not help asking. The others also wanted to know the answer. However, Bei Yunj clearly did not want to tell them more. She only replied calmly, "Mm." The rest of the people instantly felt stifled. Although Professor Si Qingyan looked refined and gentle, he was actually very difficult to approach. But Si Qingyan actually gave Bei Yunj chocolate. "Anlin, how's your relationship with Professor Si?" Someone asked softly. Chu Anlin's expression did not look too good either. She pursed her lips. In fact, Chu Anlin had spent a lot of effort to build a good relationship with Si Qingyan back then. But as she thought, Si Qingyan was not an easy person to get close to. At the door, a handsome boy in a red and black checkered shirt walked in with a gentle smile. "Junior Sister Chu." Instantly, just as everyone was paying attention to Bei Yunj, Chu Anlin suddenly saw a figure at the door. Her eyes lit up, and she immediately stood up. "Senior brother Zhou, I'm here. I'm happy to help." Zhou Xing smiled and sat beside Chu Anlan again. He looked at the data. The others became excited. This was Zhou Xing from Yin University's second year. "Senior brother Zhou, can you help me take a look at this data?" Chu Anlan's expression finally softened. Zhou Xing pushed his glasses up, his expression slightly stiff. "Junior, this project is not as simple as you think. It involves a very comprehensive content. I might be unable to do it instantly." However, 10 minutes later, Chu Anlin forced a smile and said, "I think we only need Marcus's algorithm." "Senior brother Zhou, don't you know Marcus's research very well?" "All right, I'll take a look again." Everyone fell silent. Chu Anlin felt like she had been slapped in the face and her face burned. "Senior brother, why don't you take a look again?" When Ding Kueisheng saw this, he suddenly thought of what Si Qingyan had said. He looked thoughtfully at the place where Bei Yunj had left. Zhou Xing was under a lot of pressure, especially when he was being watched by so many junior sisters and junior brothers. However, he suddenly asked. Yunj, can you try changing this data? With that said, a few minutes later, Zhou Xing was still at a loss. Ding Kuixing happened to see Bei Yunj coming back from the bathroom. Subsequently, someone was not convinced. Professor Ding, aren't you being too biased? Are you comparing a high school student to us? Ding Kuixing felt embarrassed that he actually made things difficult for a third-year high school student. When the others heard this, they were also stunned for a long time. However, Chuanlan's lips suddenly curved and there was a trace of mockery in her eyes. Perhaps Student Pei can do it? It's okay to let her try. That's right. Who are you looking down on? The straight-A student in our department, and Zhou Xing from the computer department don't know how to do it. How can she do it? The others were also indignant. Yunj, you're still. Before Ding Kuixing could finish speaking, Bei Yunj had already changed into her jacket, walked over to the computer, and glanced at the data. Since Bei Yunj had come knocking on her door, she was naturally willing to embarrass Bei Yunj along with her. However, Ding Kuixing felt awkward for a moment. He felt that he had dragged Bei Yunj down with him. Bei Yunj looked at it for a long time. Then, just when everyone thought that this person clearly did not know anything and actually dared to come over and pretend to be a straight-A student, and was not afraid of being slapped in the face, they saw Bei Yunj's eyebrows move. It's this data? Chapter 9:15. Do you know Si Qingyan? Ding Kuixing could not help but ask. The others also wanted to know the answer. However, Bei Yunj clearly did not want to tell them more. She only replied indifferently yes. And the others immediately felt stifled. Although Professor Si Qingyan looked gentle, he was actually very difficult to approach. But Si Qingyan actually gave Bei Yunj chocolate? Anlan, how is your relationship with Professor Si? Someone asked softly. Chu Anlan's expression did not look too good either. She pursed her lips. Average. In reality, back then, Chu Anlan had also spent a lot of effort to build a good relationship with Si Qingyan. But just as she thought, Si Qingyan was not someone who was easy to get close to. At the door, a handsome boy wearing a red and black checkered shirt walked in. He smiled warmly. Junior Sister Chu. Immediately, just when everyone was paying attention to Bei Yunj, suddenly, Chu Anlan saw a figure at the door. Her eyes lit up and she immediately stood up. Senior brother Zhou, I'm here. Happy to help. Zhou Xing smiled and sat next to Chu Anlan again. He glanced at the data. The others were excited. This was Zhou Xing from Yundayin Air. Senior brother Zhou, can you help me take a look at this data? Chu Anlan's expression finally eased. Zhou Xing pushed up his spectacles. His expression was slightly stiff. Junior sister, this project is not as simple as you think. It involves very comprehensive content. I may have the heart but not the strength. Instantly. However, 10 minutes later, Chu Anlan forced a smile. I think we just need Marcus algorithm. Senior apprentice brother Zhou. Don't you know Marcus research very well? Okay, I'll take a look. Everyone was silent. Chu Anlan felt as if she had been slapped in the face. Her face was burning. Senior brother, why don't you take a look? Seeing this scene, Ding Kuixing suddenly thought of what Si Qingyan had said. He looked thoughtfully at the place where Bei Yunj had left. Zhou Xing was under a lot of pressure, especially when so many junior sisters and junior brothers were watching him. However, he suddenly asked, Yunj, can you try to help me change this data? As soon as he finished speaking, until a few minutes later, Zhou Xing was still at his wit's end. Ding Kuixing happened to see that Bei Yunj had just returned from the washroom. Subsequently, someone was not convinced. Professor Ding, aren't you being too biased? Are you comparing a high school student with us? Ding Kuixing felt ashamed. He actually made things difficult for a high school student. When the others heard this, they were also stunned for a long time. However, Chu Anlan's lips suddenly curled up and a faint mocking look flashed across her eyes. Perhaps Student Pei can do it? It doesn't matter if she gives it a try. That's right. Who is she looking down on? Even our top student and Zhou Xing from the computer science department can't do it. How can she do it? The others were also indignant. Yunj, you'd better. Before Ding Kuixing finished speaking, Pei Yunj had already changed into her coat, walked to the computer, and glanced at the data. Since Pei Yunj had come to her door, of course, she was willing to let Pei Yunj embarrass herself with her. Ding Kuixing felt embarrassed for a moment. He felt that he had dragged Pei Yunj into the water. Pei Yunj looked at it for a long time. Then, just when everyone thought that this person obviously didn't know anything, she actually dared to come over and pretend to be a top student, and was not afraid of being slapped in the face. They saw Pei Yunj frown. Is it this data? Chapter 9:16. Pei Yunj glanced at them with an ambiguous gaze, and picked up a bottle of mineral water lazily. She casually glanced at the data and her fingers jumped on the keyboard, changing it. Soon someone shouted, Pei Yunj, don't touch Professor Shue's data. If the project is ruined, Professor Shue will definitely not let you off. Pei Yunj drank her water and stared at the screen. She asked slowly, he can even make a mistake in this kind of data. How can he not let me off? Very quickly, the data was changed back to its original state. Instantly, the others were speechless. What did she mean? Was she looking down on Professor Shue? But at this moment, seeing Pei Yunj change the data, Ding Kuixing seemed to understand why Si Qingyan said that she had given him a cheat. It's done. After Pei Yunj was done, she returned to the sofa to open the chocolates. Just now, Pei Yunj was slower to use the keyboard with one hand, but it only took her about 10 minutes. This made the smile on Chu Anlin's face freeze as she stared at the screen. How was this possible? Pei Yunj was just a repeater. Even Zhou Xing could not change this data, so how could she? Senior Zhou, this data must be wrong. Can you see if you can change it back? Someone immediately asked. I really have to take my hat off to her. How can there be such a person? Why is a third-year high school student pretending to know when she doesn't? She was able to enter Yin University. Before they could finish complaining, Zhou Xing interrupted them. The data she changed seems to be correct. Instantly, Ding Kuixing snapped out of his daze. He walked to the computer and took a photo for Professor Shue. A few minutes later, Professor Shue sent a voice message. After Ding Kuixing clicked on it, Professor Shue's voice reached everyone's ears. Sure, someone knows how to change this data. This is an improved algorithm. Not many people in the country know how to do it. Xiao Ding, where did you find such a teacher? Introduce her to me? Instantly, the atmosphere became even colder. Ding Kuixing's body stiffened as he instinctively looked at the cheat. The others felt their faces burning. They were the ones who said that Pei Yunj was pretending to be knowledgeable when she didn't know anything. They were also the ones who provoked Pei Yunj and asked her to change it. Now he felt like his face had been slapped swollen. Yunj, are you really a year 3 student? Ding Kuixing asked with difficulty. I'm not. You are? Pei Yunj looked up at him. Ding Kuixing. Very good. He was still the troublemaker he knew. In the next moment, Pei Yunj's gaze slowly swept across these people. The teaching standards of Yin University are quite surprising. It was indeed much worse than Neely University. Neely University didn't let down its reputation as the top school in the world. They were so angry that their faces changed. Chu Enlan's expression turned ugly, but she couldn't do anything. When Zhou Xing left, he couldn't help but look at Pei Yunj again and murmured, that girl just now seems a little familiar. Senior brother, you must be joking. She's a repeater. Chu Enlan realized that she had said something wrong and corrected herself. She's a student of Hengda. She probably hasn't come into contact with the university yet. Even Professor Shue praised her so much. If she enters Yin University, she will definitely be a talent that the physics and computing departments will fight for. After all, the project just now involved many important points in physics. Zhou Xing's straightforward praise made Chu Enlan feel a sense of danger. Chu Enlan's eyes were dark. Did Song Yao specially find her friend to go against her? End of chapter. Chapter 9:17. After returning, Chu Anlin saw that Ding Kuixing was getting more and more interested in Pei Yunj. He even gave Pei Yunj the opportunity to invite famous people in the academic field. I still hope that more foreign researchers can come to this exhibition. Ding Kuixing frowned. Luo Yinsheng from the Institute of Computational Technology in our nation. Can you try to invite him? Bei Yunj raised an eyebrow. She did not seem to have any impression of this person. Luo Yinsheng? At this moment, Chu Anlin suddenly said, "Why don't I invite Uncle Luo?" Ding Kuixing was stunned. "Anlin, you know Luo Yinsheng? This was all the famous scholars in our nation." Chu Anlin appeared humble and smiled naturally. "My father and Uncle Luo are high school classmates. I've seen Uncle Luo a few times." When the others heard this, their eyes were filled with envy. As expected of an academic family, other than the high IQ she inherited, she also had such strong connections. If it were anyone else, how could they have such connections? The rest of the people glanced at Bei Yunj thoughtfully. Seeing that she was expressionless, they only felt that Bei Yunj was pretending to be natural. Then this job is very suitable for Enlan. Immediately, someone came out to stand in line. No matter what, they did not want to be defeated by a high school student. Yes, Professor Ding. Enlan is old Master Chu's daughter. Maybe she knows a few people on the list. Hearing their words, Ding Kuixing was a little hesitant. In the end, he could only say, "How about this? The two of you will work together and assign tasks." With that said, Bei Yunj and Chu Anlin frowned. Chu Anlin did not expect Ding Kuixing to be so persistent. "That's fine too." Chu Anlin smiled and turned to look at Bei Yunj. "The people on this list might not be free, but we have to invite at least 7 or 8 people for Professor Ding, right?" Hearing this, everyone felt that Bei Yunj would definitely mess it up. It was not difficult for Chu Anlin to invite 7 or 8 scholars. However, for a high school student like Bei Yunj who did not have any connections, it was simply impossible. Bei Yunj glanced at the list and replied casually, "Sure." When Chu Enlan saw this, a touch of complacency and slyness flashed across her eyes. Bei Yunj actually agreed. Did she think that people in the academic circle were so easy to get close to? After Ding Kuixing finished the call outside, he entered the door and saw Chu Anlin making a call to invite the scholars. Bei Yunj was still playing with her phone. His eyelids twitched and he walked over. "Chu Enlan has already invited 2 people. Aren't you going to ask for their advice and ask for their help?" In Ding Kuixing's opinion, this job was also beneficial to Bei Yunj. By volunteering here, he could also come into contact with many top talents. There's no rush. Bei Yunj was still chatting in the group. Ding Kuixing glanced at it. The group name was Loving Family Rose. What kind of unique family group was this? Forget it. If you can't persuade her, I'll do it. Ding Kuixing had already given up on Bei Yunj. At this moment, Chu Anlin heard Ding Kuixing's conversation not far away, and the corners of her mouth curled up. At this moment, she made a video call to Luo Yinsheng. A few minutes later, the video call went through. Chu Anlin was full of smiles. Before she could say anything, she heard the other party ask in an unpleasant tone, "What's the matter? Why did you video call me? P.S. Thank you for helping Master Pei to get on the list. He's still trying to get on the list. Is there anyone who can vote for him?" End of chapter. Chapter 918. Chu Enlan's expression froze. She did not expect Luo Yinsheng to be so impatient. Luo Yinsheng frowned when he saw that Chu Enlan did not react. But in the next second, Chu Enlan reacted quickly. "Uncle Luo, Yinsheng will hold a scientific research exhibition in a few days. We will invite many people. Do you want to come and take a look?" "I'm not free." Luo Yinsheng's rejection attracted the attention of the people around him. This made Chu Enlan almost unable to maintain the expression on her face. She forced a smile and said, "But there should be many people coming to the exhibition." Seeing this scene, everyone else was terrified. Even Chu Enlan was frustrated, not to mention Bei Yunj. "Enlan, didn't Chu Yeming tell you that I'm working on an important project recently?" Luo Yinsheng's tone was indifferent. Moreover, he and Chu Yeming were not close friends. They were just acquaintances. Chu Enlan's face turned pale. Luo Yinsheng took a deep breath. Just as he was about to turn around and say something to Chu Enlan, his sharp eyes suddenly saw a flash of a figure. He froze. Who was the person who just walked out? Did he see wrongly? Why was she here? Where are you now? Luo Yunqing's sudden question stunned Chuanlan. The first research institute of Yincheng. I see. Luo Yunqing remembered that she was in Yincheng. He could not help but ask, who are the participants? Chuanlan saw that there was a turning point and immediately said, I'm not sure yet, but there will definitely be many important scholars participating. Luo Yunqing's heart was itching. He did not want to know who would be participating in the exhibition. He only wanted to know if she would be participating. About this, Luo Yunqing was wondering if he had seen wrongly. But in the next moment he saw the person at the door holding the chocolate and wobbling in. He immediately changed his words. I still have time to go. When Chuanlan heard this, she seemed to be struck by good luck and instantly became excited. Really? That's great. Chuanlan was wild with joy. After hanging up the phone, Chuanlan glanced at Bei Yunj, and the corners of her lips curled up. She hadn't invited any scholars yet. It seemed like she really didn't have any connections. At this moment, the others couldn't help but sigh. Lan, you even managed to invite Luo Yunqing. You're amazing. Chuanlan smiled faintly. As you can see, Uncle Luo has a bad temper. I guess it's because of my dad that I was able to invite him this time. Hearing that, the others became even more envious. It was so good to have a father who was a researcher. If it was someone else, Luo Yunqing would have gone berserk. Ding Kuixing watched the video and felt that Luo Yunqing's eyes weren't on Chuanlan the next day. Chuanlan had already invited 4 scholars. She looked at the list and saw that everyone who could be invited had already been invited. She couldn't help but sneer. The rest were top researchers who didn't even have a complete set of contact information. Not to mention Bei Yunj, even her father, Chu Yeming, was rarely seen. She wanted to see how Bei Yunj was able to invite these immortals. Noon. The people in the corridor were laughing. Does she really think she's so great? It's been 2 days and she didn't even dare to make a phone call. Professor Ding actually thinks highly of such a person. End of chapter. Chapter 919. In the group of people, a man and a woman were chatting. The rest of the people were waiting to watch the show. Xiaomeng, she's here. The person next to them had sharp eyes. When he saw Bei Yunj from afar, he immediately reminded her. However, the woman did not seem to care. Instead, she crossed her arms and laughed proudly. So what if she's here? Do you think I'm afraid of her? When the man next to her saw this, he imitated the conversation between Ding Kuixing and Bei Yunj even more exaggeratedly. When he saw that Bei Yunj was here, he became even more excited. Just when everyone wanted to laugh out loud, the next thing that happened caused the atmosphere to change abruptly. The man was suddenly hit in the face by a bottle of mineral water. Even his teeth were loosened from the impact. His whole body crashed into the water dispenser. His hand accidentally touched the pipe, and he instantly howled in pain. This scene stunned everyone present, and the atmosphere became stiff and cold. The woman who was originally proud and complacent suddenly felt a chill down her spine. She stared blankly at the person being discussed and walked slowly to them. Why? Do you have a problem with me? Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. Her eyes were bright and unruly. Her aura was so strong that no one dared to say anything. The next moment, before anyone could react, Bei Yunj suddenly lifted the man by the collar and slammed him against the wall. The dull sound of bones cracking was not loud, but it was terrifying. The man howled in pain, but he did not dare to make too much noise. He could only look at the person in front of him in fear. Bei Yunj was laughing, but her eyes were cold. She patted the man's face as if she was joking. Do you know why I'm here? Ha. However, for a moment, the man felt as if an evil spirit had attached itself to his back. He trembled all over. This is the Research Institute. Bei Yunj, Professor Ding is in the office. If you dare. The man reacted and immediately wanted to threaten Bei Yunj. However, the next moment, a punch landed on his face. The man trembled in pain. He covered his face in disbelief. Then he heard her ask playfully, "If I dare to do what?" Everyone else was shocked. When they came back to their senses, they were afraid that Bei Yunj would be the next one to make trouble for them. The girl standing next to him felt her legs go weak, and she took a step back in fear. Raise your head. Bei Yunji's tone was casual, but the boy who was leaning against the wall had no choice but to endure the pain. His entire body trembled as he slowly straightened his back. Classmate Pei. Classmate Pei, I was just joking. Really? I like jokes too. Bei Yunji curled her lips and suddenly kicked him in the stomach with her knee. This made the boy bend down subconsciously, and his face was almost distorted. Bei Yunji smiled and asked slowly, "Do you like this joke?" When the surrounding people saw this scene, only one thought popped into their minds. Running away from this place, this person was too scary. They wanted to stay as far away from Bei Yunji as possible. They had never met anyone who dared to make a move in the research institute. Next, Bei Yunji let go of the boy's collar and glanced at everyone present. Is there anyone else who wants to make fun of me? The few people present shook their heads vigorously. Making fun of her was equivalent to risking one's life? Don't stand on ceremony. If you want to make fun of me, go ahead. Bei Yunji picked up a bottle of mineral water and glanced at them lazily. She smiled and said, "If you want to be hospitalized, just keep talking." Everyone. End of chapter. Chapter 920. Then. Everyone watched as Bei Yunji threw the mineral water bottle into the rubbish bin and left. Only then did they heave a sigh of relief. It was too depressing just now. This is the first time I've encountered such a scene. Someone came back to his senses and felt as if his strength had been sucked out. He muttered weakly. The others did not say anything, but they thought so too. This Bei Yunji was really too scary. Why would such a person be a volunteer? It was ridiculous. In the next few days, even Ding Kuisheng felt that the children in Yin University's laboratory were avoiding Bei Yunji like a snake or scorpion. During the meeting, whenever Bei Yunji spoke, no one dared to even raise their heads. However, in the past 2 days, the planning for the conference was nearing its end. Professor Ding, this is the list of people invited to the exhibition. Chu Anlin said with a smile. Ding Kuisheng glanced at these names and asked in surprise, "So many?" Chu Anlin had already contacted 9 scholars, including a well-known researcher like Luo Yinsheng. Of course, I will do my best to complete the mission given by Professor Ding. Ding Kuisheng nodded. Thank you for your hard work. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Anlin's gaze landed on Bei Yunji again. I'll send you the list tomorrow. After Bei Yunji finished speaking, the others felt disdain in their hearts. They felt that Bei Yunji could not invite these researchers at all. However, because of what happened a few days ago, no one dared to mock Bei Yunji in front of her. Okay. Ding Kuisheng looked quite happy. In fact, he did not have high hopes for Bei Yunji. After all, he had invited many famous researchers according to Bei Yunji's method. However, when Chu Anlin heard this, a trace of mockery flashed across her eyes. She had invited all the researchers on the list who could be invited. Who did Bei Yunji think she was that everyone had to give her face? After the meeting ended, Bei Yunji looked at the time of the exhibition and took a photo of the list. She opened the group chat, Loving Family Rose. Picture. Does anyone know them? Soon, someone replied in the group. Si Qingyan? Zhong Shenglin? Zhou Moping. There are 3 of them. Are they my students? Bei Yunji raised her eyebrows and continued to reply. There's an exhibition the day after tomorrow. We need to gather some people. Zhou Moping. That's easy. I'll ask my students to come with me. Zhong Shenglin. Si Qingyan, you go too. Si Qingyan? Yu Guang. Exhibition? I'm free to. Bai Mingzhang. I'm going too. Until the next day. Bei Yunji walked up to Ding Kuisheng and thought for a moment. If I can't invite the people on the list, how about we change the group? This was not the initial list. After Ding Kuisheng sorted out the people who would never come, Bei Yunji did not recognize any of them. All right. You can swap out whoever you want. Ding Kuisheng was so busy that he did not care who Bei Yunji found. He only patted Bei Yunji's shoulder. Good luck. Bei Yunji. When the people around heard this, they were even more excited. If Bei Yunji could not find anyone to participate, she might as well say so. Otherwise, wouldn't it be embarrassing if she compared herself to the researchers invited by Chu Anlin? Chu Anlin could not hide the joy on her face. When she thought about how she could suppress Bei Yunj tomorrow, the corners of her lips could not help but curl up. At the exhibition. End of this chapter. Chapter 921. Bei Yunj looked at the invitation and realized that the address of the exhibition was Delaney's multi-purpose exhibition hall. At the venue, Bei Yunj stood at the door and waited. Delaney's multi-purpose exhibition hall required swiping a card to enter. However, seeing that there was no one around, Bei Yunj took out the card that the higher-ups of Delaney had given her last time and tried the card machine. Unsurprisingly, the door of the exhibition hall opened. Bei Yunj put the card back into her pocket and walked in. But half an hour later, after Bei Yunj finished shopping, she bumped into Ding Kuisheng, who was rushing over. Ding Kuisheng's eyelids twitched. How did you get in? He had been squatting at the door for more than 20 minutes, but the security guard refused to let him in. He was only allowed to pass after verifying it. Bei Yunj said. The machine seems to be broken. Which one? Bei Yunj turned around and did not even bother to brush him off. I forgot. The corner of Ding Kuisheng's mouth twitched. Okay, I'll check the temporary record card. Don't forget to get the card later. Without a temporary record card, you can't enter and leave the exhibition here at will. As it was a high-end exhibition hall, the temporary record card here was authenticated with real names, so it was convenient to participate in the auction of exhibition projects. There was still half an hour before the exhibition started, but many people had already arrived. Chu Anlin glanced at Bei Yunj, who brushed past her and sneered. She quickly went up to receive Luo Yinsheng. She smiled and greeted him. Uncle Luo, it's been a long time. There was a familiar face beside Luo Yinsheng, which made Chu Anlin unable to suppress her excitement. Is that Mr. Marcus? Marcus glanced at Chu Anlin with his blue eyes. Seeing that there was no one around, he quickly left after saying a few words. Luo Yinsheng, I'll go out and take a look first. Luo Yinsheng nodded respectfully. Okay, director. Chu Anlin could not help but be disappointed. Is Mr. Marcus leaving? No, I'm meeting a friend. Luo Yinsheng's tone was cold. But Chu Anlan didn't care at all. She followed Luo Yinsheng as if she was very familiar with him. She smiled. Is Mr. Marcus also interested in this exhibition? It's all right. Luo Yinsheng's tone was perfunctory as he scanned the surroundings, as if he was looking for someone. Chu Anlan continued to ask, Uncle Luo, are you? If you don't have anything else to do, why don't you show the others around? Luo Yinsheng was indeed a little impatient. He suppressed his temper and discussed with Chu Anlan. After that, Luo Yinsheng left without looking back. However, Chu Anlan stood there with a stiff face. She only came back to her senses when she heard her companion calling her. Anlan, was that Luo Yinsheng? Oh my god, Anlan, you're too lucky to be acquainted with such a big shot. After the girl calmed down, she thought of the atmosphere between Chu Anlan and Suli just now. Did you guys quarrel? Chu Anlan immediately put on a smile and said calmly, No, Uncle Luo doesn't like crowds. Maybe it's too noisy. So that's the case. The girl nodded and smiled gloatingly. Anlan, let me tell you, Bei Yunj doesn't seem to have invited anyone on the list. She's secretly sitting in the corridor. Chu Anlan felt a little better. Is that so? She smiled. After all, she's not from this circle. It's indeed difficult for her to blend in. P.S. We'll continue tomorrow morning. Be good and remember the monthly votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 922. On the other side. Bei Yunj was indeed playing with her phone in the corridor. The few people she had invited had not arrived after a long time. Anlin, what did you say? Marcus is here too? Luo Yinsheng raised his voice in disbelief. On the other hand, Bei Yunj, who was playing with her phone, paused and looked up instinctively. Chu Anlin smiled and said, Uncle Luo is from our nation's computing institute after all. I didn't expect them to give him so much face. These words were indirectly saying that Luo Yinsheng and Marcus were here, because of her. Ding Kuisheng did not think too much about it and only sighed. Student Chu is really amazing. I don't think even I have such connections. Professor Ding, you're joking. After Chu Anlin finished laughing, she seemed to have just seen Bei Yunj. Student Pei? Don't you need to pick up the guests you invited? They haven't arrived. Bei Yunj glanced at them and said concisely without any intention of saying anything else. However, Chu Anlin persisted and asked, they haven't arrived? Is Student Pei sure that they will come? With that said, even Ding Kuixing frowned and tried to smooth things over with a smile. Yunj, Professor C will be here later. Remember to go and receive him. Bei Yunj looked at him. Me? Ding Kuixing was speechless. It was his first time seeing a student act so disdainful of Si Chengyan. After all, he was the youngest professor in Yin University and had even been trending because of his looks. Just as Ding Kuixing took a deep breath, Chu Anlin suddenly smiled. Professor Ding, there's no need for Student Pei to receive Professor C. Chu Anlin looked at the few people not far away and pretended to be very familiar with Luo Yunxing and the rest. She turned around and smiled politely. Professor C is chatting with Uncle Luo and the rest. Uncle Luo doesn't like to be disturbed by strangers. I'll go and ask if they need anything. Ding Kuixing hesitated for a moment. Okay. After all, he was indeed not familiar with the scholars in our nation's academic circle. At this moment, Chu Anlin glanced at Bei Yunj, and the corners of her lips curled up in satisfaction. In this round, it was obvious that Bei Yunj was the one who was crushed. Thinking of this, Chu Enlan walked over briskly. Uncle Luo, Professor C. Chu Enlan's voice was soft. Mr. Marcus, do you need any help? Luo Yunsheng was interrupted and frowned subconsciously. He did not expect Chu Anlin to come again. No need. Luo Yunsheng's tone was cold. This made Chu Enlan's joy seem to have been extinguished by a basin of cold water. Coincidentally, Si Qingyan had just sent a message to Bei Yunj. Seeing the awkward situation, he smiled and said, we're waiting for someone. We really don't need your help. Thank you. Chu Enlan also blushed slightly because of Si Qingyan's gentlemanly demeanor and nodded. But in the next moment, before Chu Enlan left, she saw Bei Yunj walking towards her. Chu Enlan saw this and immediately said, Student Pei, didn't I tell you that Uncle Luo and Professor C don't like to be disturbed? You. Before he could finish his sentence, the person who had been silent all this while spoke up excitedly, Guo, you're really here? Instantly, this caused the people who were secretly observing Marcus to lose their ability to speak. The atmosphere was extremely cold. In Country A, Marcus only had a good relationship with Zhong Shenglin and a few others. But what was going on now? Chu Enlan's entire body froze. She looked at this unbelievable scene with an ugly expression. End of this chapter. Chapter 923. Bei Yunj put her phone back into her pocket and brushed past Chu Anlin. Chu Anlin froze on the spot and heard Bei Yunj greet Marcus familiarly. It's been a long time. Marcus complained unhappily. You're still talking about it. The last time you went to Neely, Zhong Shenglin didn't even want to tell me. If I want to see you, I have to come to Yincheng. At this moment, not to mention the students of Yin University's experimental class who had never seen such a scene before, even Ding Kuixing felt like he was dreaming. This volunteer's connections were truly terrifying. How did she even know Marcus? Besides, this was not just a simple acquaintance. She could actually make the big boss come to Yincheng to look for her. What a godly treatment. But speaking of which, why are you here? Marcus was curious. Bei Yunj was speechless. Beside him, Si Qingyan was trying his best to suppress his laughter. Marcus, let's ask about this later. After Si Qingyan reminded him kindly, Marcus did not ask further. At this moment, the students in Yin University's laboratory felt like they were in a dream. The person who was talking to Bei Yunj just now was Marcus? Some people still could not believe it. How did Bei Yunj know such a top researcher? Marcus and Chu Anlin's father, Chu Yeming, were not on the same level. No matter which country they were in, who didn't know Marcus from our nation who studied computing? But at this moment, Marcus and Bei Yunj looked very familiar. And this familiarity was something that Marcus took the initiative to do. As a result, Luo Yunxing and Si Qingyan, who were beside him, felt like they couldn't interrupt even if they wanted to. If there's nothing else, you guys can shop by yourselves first. I'm going to pick someone up. Beiyun saw that someone had sent her a message and said to Marcus and the rest. This made Ding Kueisheng's eyelid twitch. He wondered if Beiyun was stupid. The top researcher was standing in front of her. She was still planning to leave the big boss alone and go outside to pick up someone. Ding Kueisheng immediately went forward. Yunj, where is the person you want to fetch now? I'll go and fetch him. Now, Ding Kueisheng was afraid that Marcus would be provoked by Beiyun and leave in anger. Beiyun hesitated for a moment and looked at Ding Kueisheng. She nodded. They're outside. There should be 8 or 9 of them. All right, I'll go pick it up now. After Ding Kueisheng finished speaking, he immediately left in a relaxed and unguarded manner. However, he never imagined what kind of hell he would be facing next. At this very moment, Chu Enlon felt cold all over. Looking at Beiyun, Marcus, and the others walking together, her complexion turned extremely ugly. Why didn't Beiyun say earlier that she knew Marcus? She wanted to see her embarrass herself on purpose. Chu Enlon gritted her teeth. She was not willing to lose just like that. Enlon, are you all right? The girl next to her saw that Chu Enlon was not in a good state and asked carefully. Marcus and the Delaney Group have always been working together. After all, the Delaney Group is sponsoring this exhibition. Although Chu Enlon said this, the students present were very silent. A big boss like Marcus did not lack any bosses. Until the next moment. There was a commotion in the crowd. Everyone looked up and saw a few familiar faces. Elder Zhong, look. It's really Elder Zhong. Is that Mr. Bai Mingzhong beside him? End of chapter. Chapter 924. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. The scene continued. Master Pei's family and friends other than Zhong Shenglin. There was also the former principal of Yin University, Bai Mingzhong, the director of the Academy of Engineering, Zhou Moping, the former director of the First Research Institute of the Ministry of National Defense, Yu Guang, and the others. Everyone's hearts almost stopped beating when they saw the gathering of the big shots of scientific research that hadn't been seen in years. What kind of auspicious day was it today that all the big shots were out shopping? They were all immortals in the scientific research world. Chu Anlin felt a chill run down her spine when she saw this scene. She had a bad feeling. Ding, where's my gu'er? Bai Mingzhong asked kindly. Zhong Shenglin was especially disdainful. Don't try to claim connections. Lanjun hasn't even acknowledged you, and you're already treating yourself as Gu'er's biological grandfather? The volume of his voice was neither too loud nor too soft, just enough for some of the people present to hear him clearly. Mr. Bai Mingzhong wanted to be Beiyun's grandfather? The students of Yin University's laboratory were naturally the most familiar with Bai Mingzhong. He was the former principal of Yin University. In fact, Bai Mingzhong was their principal when they were still undergraduates. At this moment, Ding Kueisheng was under the most pressure. He had a stiff smile on his face, and his legs were weak. From the start, he had never thought that Pei Yunj would know anyone at her age. Therefore, he never expected that when he walked to the door, he would see Zhong Shenglin and a few other scientific researchers waiting for him at the door. This ancestor had invited Zhong Shenglin and the others over without saying a word. What was the meaning of this? Do you all want some tea? Ding Kueisheng was very regretful. If he had known that Zhong Shenglin and Bai Mingzhong would be coming, he would have prepared the best Longjing tea this time. No need. Bai Mingzhong smiled and refused. When he saw Beiyun not far away, his eyes lit up. Beiyun looked up and saw Ding Kueisheng coming back with the others. I told you that I would pick you up, but you refused. Don't tell me that you rode a bike here on such a cold day. Beiyun walked over and spoke in a cold tone. Only the corners of her eyes seemed to be curved, making her look unbelievably beautiful. The function hall was located in a remote area. If they had waited for the bus, Zhong Shenglin and the others would not have arrived so quickly. The surrounding people felt their scalps go numb. This was the first time they saw someone daring to lecture Zhong Shenglin and the others like this. After all, they were the earliest batch of veterans who had contributed most of their energy to the country. You'll feel warm after some exercise, Zhong Shenglin said immediately and even rubbed his hands together symbolically. Bai Mingzhong nodded. That's right, that's right. The older generation was not only used to living frugally, but they also remembered the hardships of the war. This included Lin Lanjun. She had received tens of millions of dollars in prize money, but she had donated all of it to Project Hope to find lost children. Bai Yunj glanced at them, nodded and chuckled. That's good. You can ride a bike happily now, and you can stay in the hospital neatly in the future. Zhong Shenglin. By Ming Zhang. Yu Guang and Zhou Moping. Old Zhong was right. His daughter was indeed very fierce. Zhong Shenglin knew that he was in the wrong. He could only turn to look at Marcus and question fiercely. Marcus, who allowed you to wander around our Yincheng for no reason? Marcus. Not long after Zhong Shenglin and the others went to their seats, Ding Kuisheng pulled Bai Yunj back. You told me to change a batch of people. Did you mean this batch? Ding Kuisheng took a deep breath and asked with a fake smile. End of chapter. Chapter 925. Bai Yunj looked at him, not understanding what he meant. Ding Kuisheng was speechless. It seemed like this person really pulled Zhong Shenglin, and the rest to make up the numbers. I don't know anyone else either. You can't be picky, Bai Yunj said slowly. Ding Kuisheng was speechless. Hearing this person speak, he really felt like breaking down. Fortunately, the exhibition was about to start. Ding Kuisheng stood on the stage as if he had just woken up from a dream. However, when he saw the people in the first row, his legs still turned weak. What kind of monster was Bai Yunj? She pulled a row of top researchers to support her. On the stage, Ding Kuisheng introduced with a stiff expression. The others were not any better. They had heard that she would be participating in the exhibition. Although they knew that the possibility was very small, they still wanted to try their luck. However, they did not expect to meet people like Zhong Shenglin and Bai Mingzhang. Those in the industry who did not attend today were probably regretting it. At the same time, Chu Anlin's expression was extremely ugly. She could not figure out who Bai Yunj was. Anlin, let's look at the exhibition first. The female classmate beside her paused and added, I saw the unit on her application board just now. It's the first research institute of the Ministry of National Defense. Chu Anlin's face paled. What did you say? In Country A, the first research institute of the Ministry of National Defense was even more difficult to enter than the Academy of Science. The female classmate fell silent. Chu Anlin clenched her fists and stared at Bai Yunj gloomily. Soon. She laughed coldly. Song Yao has really improved. It seems like she's going against me to the end. Anlin, who doesn't know that Elder Zhong and the rest don't vote for projects easily. No matter how many Bai Yunj brings, they are all fake. After the female classmate comforted her, Chu Anlin's expression improved. She was right. Even if Elder Zhong and the rest came, Bai Yunj still did not have much practical help to this exhibition. Chu Anlin watched as the S-grade projects were introduced one by one. There was indeed no movement in the first row. Only a few of the people she invited voted for 2 or 3 projects. As for the incomplete projects, students, and prepared projects, these big shots were even less likely to take a fancy to them. Thinking of this, Chu Anlan pursed her lips and her eyes were cold. But then, a boy with a clean temperament suddenly appeared on the stage. He clenched his fists nervously and walked onto the stage with his introduction book. In fact, almost no one cared about the later projects, and no one would follow and choose. However, the male student continued his speech seriously. The topic of the speech was a hearing aid. It could help people with hearing loss integrate into society more easily. For example, they could take up jobs like driving. After all, according to the relevant regulations, many cities had banned honking. After the project was pushed forward, they could sign a contract with some taxi companies to provide work opportunities for deaf drivers. After the introduction of the project, everyone present knew that it was very difficult to put such a project into practice. There were not many people who could afford to lead this project. Ladies and gentlemen who are interested in this project, please vote. After the host finished speaking, a brief introduction of the project appeared on the screen. Below was a blank list of candidates. Everyone lost interest and waited for the introduction to be over to see if they had a chance to sit in the first row. But the next moment, The mechanical voice sounded as the image on the big screen changed. Thank you to the first candidate for this project. End of this chapter. Chapter 926. A clear line of words appeared on the screen. Project candidate, candidate 1 YG. Everyone held their breaths. Why what? YG is really coming to the exhibition. Chapter 926. Afraid of YG's revenge, the mysterious person appears. Please wait a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 927. The mysterious man said, I just want a way to get close to her. You know, Country A is very protective of her. Then I'll tell you officially. She's my disciple. No one can have any ideas about her. Nancy said lightly, but there was a cold warning in his eyes. The mysterious man was stunned. He knew how strict Nancy's standards were. If he liked her, then it seemed that she was not a genius packaged by Country A as they thought. Teacher, I want to invite her to Continent K for the assessment. As soon as the mysterious man finished speaking, Nancy refused. Impossible. The mysterious man pursed his lips. Teacher, if she comes, I'll make sure she's safe. Do you think I'll still believe you? Nancy sneered. As soon as he finished speaking, the mysterious man was silent for a long time and said, Teacher, you know in your heart how different the scientific research level here is from that of Continent K. You've also worked your way up in Continent K, so you know how hard it is to achieve success. Nancy was unmoved. He just drank some coffee. At this moment, the mysterious man moved his lips. Okay. Then he sent a document to Nancy. What are you doing? Nancy frowned. Let her have a try for this test. Very few people can get 60 points. The mysterious man said lightly. Are you trying to trick me? Nancy narrowed his eyes. The mysterious man couldn't help but laugh. The passing score in Continent K is different from the passing score here. Teacher, don't you know best? Teacher, Country A protects her very well. But if she has the support of the 191st laboratory, then no one can touch her. Nancy was silent for a long time before he passed the document to Bei Yunj. 2 hours later, the mysterious man asked, Have you finished filling it out? Nancy hesitated. She doesn't seem to have woken up yet. The mysterious man said. Did she do her research too late yesterday? Nancy said she hasn't done any research during this period. She was volunteering. The mysterious man was speechless. He suddenly felt that this genius was not so reliable. Could she really be a packaging genius from Country A? Just as the mysterious man was thinking, Nancy suddenly said, she accepted the document. The mysterious man nodded. About 20 minutes later, Nancy saw that Bei Yunj had finished filling out the form and sent him a copy. He hesitated for a moment. Now 191 was so easy? While thinking, Nancy sent the question to the mysterious man. The mysterious man was stunned. She's done? It had only been 20 minutes. I think so. Nancy asked. Is your mission very simple this time? The mysterious man's eyelids twitched. In order to test his level, he took a test that was more difficult. No one had ever scored more than 70 points on this test. Thinking of this, the mysterious man didn't believe it and started to check. But the more he answered the question, the more he doubted his life. Did he really spend 20 minutes on this? Last time, the students who passed the assessment took 2 hours. After checking, the mysterious man's body stiffened. Nancy asked subconsciously, How is it? You passed? The mysterious man's expression cracked in an instant. He turned around with a stiff and expressionless face. Full marks. This time, he had really dug out an incredible character for him. This was the first time he had met someone who scored full marks on a test. He had probably never met someone who scored full marks since the establishment of the laboratory. Chapter 928. Is Lab 191 standard so bad? Nancy blurted out subconsciously. But not long after, Nancy realized what kind of monster her Guer was. It was not surprising that she got full marks. The mysterious man was speechless. For the first time, someone questioned the standard of Lab 191. But he could not refute the test paper with full marks in hand. The mysterious man took a deep breath. Teacher, are you sure she hasn't done this question? What do you mean? Nancy was unhappy. She suspected that he cheated? Teacher, you know I didn't mean that. The mysterious man smiled bitterly. Nancy was indignant, but he still asked Bai Yunj if she had done this kind of question. Not long after, Bai Yunj replied with a voice message. After Nancy clicked on it, Bai Yunj's soft laughter sounded first, then her lazy voice entered their ears. Teacher, your way of humiliating people now is quite special. Nancy was speechless. The mysterious man was speechless. Listening to the voice, he could feel the master's unruliness. It was also the first time the mysterious man knew that someone would think that doing the test paper of Lab 191 was a kind of humiliation. Well, my disciple doesn't mean any harm. Nancy coughed. She hasn't done a simple question for a long time. The mysterious man was speechless. This pair of teacher and disciple did it on purpose, right? He took a deep breath and said, Teacher, you know that with her talent, Continent K can give her more. Please consider it. The mysterious man paused. Although what happened to your wife was an accident, we're all very sorry. You don't want your wife to. Don't mention my lover again. Nancy's attitude suddenly became cold. My lover can't afford to be sheltered by Lab 191, and neither can my disciple. After that, Nancy suddenly got up and left. The mysterious man also knew that today's negotiation had failed. He pursed his lips, thought for a long time, and logged on to CI7's network again. Bai Yunj had just come out of the shower and was sitting lazily on the sofa when she saw a message pop up on her cell phone. It was a list sent to her by Xian Yuan. What the buyer wanted was all the information of the Computing Institute's members. Bai Yunj raised her eyebrows and sent Xian Yuan a question mark. Xian Yuan, difficult? Max. Don't answer it. After sending it out, Bai Yunj sat in front of the computer and sorted out all the information she had. Xian Yuan thought that Bai Yunj wouldn't be able to find out, so he threw this tricky task to a few senior members. But he didn't expect that. He was just looking for information on a scientific researcher, but all of them accepted the order and then refunded it. This was the first time that the senior members of CI7 had collectively backed out. Continent K. Are you sure it's full marks? The middle-aged man suddenly stood up, agitated. The mysterious man who had been talking to Nancy a few days ago was now standing in front of the middle-aged man. Yes. I knew it. Why would Nancy stay at the Computing Institute? The middle-aged man said. No, we must find her. The mysterious man paused. I don't know if it's because the security measures in Country A are too strict, but I can't find any information. It was as if it had been purposely erased. It was so blank that it could not be any more blank. Really? I've already contacted CI7, but there's still no clue at all. As soon as the mysterious man finished speaking, the middle-aged man sucked in a breath of cold air. Then this is difficult. If CI7 couldn't find anything, then there was nothing he could do. It seemed that he could only make a breakthrough on Nancy. P.S. Good night. Thank you for your efforts this month. Master Pei is number 1 on the monthly votes list. This month, Master Pei still needs monthly votes. Are there any children who want to vote for him? End of chapter. Chapter 929. Go and book me a ticket to Yunqing. The middle-aged man looked at the scene at the door and narrowed his eyes. The mysterious man was stunned. Teacher, you. A few seconds later, he replied, got it. Over the past few days, Bai Yunj had been promoting the hearing aid project. She left early and returned late. She would only speak to Huashidu at the dining table. At the Computing Institute, Bai Yunj looked at Du Zhao's persistent call and finally picked it up. What's wrong? Bai Yunj took off her goggles. Her bright eyes were cold, but not long after, she returned to her casual appearance. Guer, it's about the governor questioning your results. Du Zhao said. Bai Yunj raised her eyebrows. I don't have time to go to Neely. Du Zhao had always hoped that she would go to Neely to attend the International Musicians Association's banquet and slap the faces of those who said that she cheated. No, it's someone from the International Music Alliance. Du Xiao immediately explained. The people from the International Music Alliance have interfered in this matter. Gur, he has already gone to Yincheng. Do you want to find time to meet him? Du Xiao had no choice in this matter. The International Musicians Association and the International Music Alliance had always suppressed each other. Moreover, the International Music Alliance had become famous in Continent K in recent years. The person who had been sent to Yuncheng was also someone whom the International Music Alliance valued greatly. Bei Yunj glanced at the research work at hand and thought for a while. Sure. Du Xiao heaved a sigh of relief and gave her a contact number. After Bei Yunj finished the task at hand, she slowly prepared to go to the airport to look for him. What was even more unexpected was that this search would lead to something completely unexpected. At the airport in the afternoon, the security guards had no choice but to come out to control the situation. However, they couldn't get the person sitting in the waiting area to leave. The assistant was so anxious that she was sweating. She looked at the young man in sunglasses. Brother Su, does the other party know that you're Song Su? Anyone who knew Song Su's name should have come to pick him up 10 minutes in advance. Song Su paused and smiled. You know, don't you? Seeing that Song Su didn't care, the assistant became even more anxious. This person won't be late, right? There are only 3 minutes left until the appointed time. Hearing this, Song Su quickly picked up his hat and looked at the people around him carefully. Finally, his gaze fixed on a girl who was frowning. She was so beautiful that no one had ever seen such stunning looks in the entertainment industry. His heart skipped a beat, and he called the other party according to the contact information given by Du Xiao. As expected, a girl outside the crowd picked it up and said in a clear voice, Song Su, right? Where are you? Bei Yunj glanced around and didn't see any men in their 20s. Song Su curled his lips in amusement. He didn't expect that Bei Yunj really didn't know him. Can you turn around and take a look? After saying this, Bei Yunj turned around and saw a young and handsome man walking out of the crowd. Hello, I'm Song Su. Song Su walked over to Bei Yunj's side. She frowned and was about to say something. Suddenly, Song Su grabbed Bei Yunj's wrist and ran out. When the female fans behind saw this scene, they couldn't stop screaming. There were also people who ran after them. But at this time, even Song Su's assistant didn't have time to react. A few minutes later, he realized that he had also been dumped by Song Su. But the reporters who had been following them had already captured the scene of Song Su and the unfamiliar young girl. Very soon. Hashtag Song Su returns hashtag Song Su's girlfriend at the airport hashtag. These words had already hit the headlines. On the bridge across the river, Song Su leaned against the railing and looked at the girl beside him, who didn't say a word to him. His eyes were full of interest. Bei Yunj? Just now at the airport, he had only grabbed Bei Yunj's wrist in a moment of desperation. But the next moment, he had been dumped by this girl. This was also the first time Song Su was so disliked by the girls. Bei Yunj looked up. How do you want to test my skills? Song Su smiled. His eyebrows were gentle and good-looking, but his eyes were very dark. He lazily propped up his cheek. It's the first time we meet. Shouldn't we have a good chat? Coincidentally, I'm hungry too. Hearing this, Bei Yunj finally looked at him properly. After a while, she laughed softly. She asked slowly, why? Do you think I'm here to pick you up for dinner? In the afternoon. At the Hua Corporation. In the spacious office, a reminder bell rang. After reading the document in his hand, Huashida glanced at the note before picking up his phone. What's wrong? Qinyu heaved a sigh of relief when Huashidu finally picked up the call. However, in the next moment he pursed his lips. Master Du, tell me the truth. Is Gu in a relationship? The pen in the man's hand stopped and the ink stained a spot. In a relationship? Huashidu asked carelessly, his cold fingers caressing the pen in his hand. She and Song Su are trending. Qinyu took a deep breath and chuckled. I've never received such treatment even when Gu picked Song Su up at the airport. Huashidu asked Song Su. Qinyu was speechless. There was actually someone who didn't know Song Su these days. It's that Song Su who entered the Music Alliance and founded the largest entertainment company in our nation. After Qinyu finished speaking, he was still frustrated. He could not help but be angry. I really don't understand. Why would Gu-er like that kind of person? Other than looking alright and having some ability, how is Song-su worthy of Gu-er? With that said, the man's pale-colored eyes darkened. Qin continued to ask, Master Du, what should I do? I don't want Gu-er to fall in love so soon. Within moments, the man said slowly, Qin Yu, you're Yunyun's biological brother. These words made Qin Yu perk up instantly. Huashida said slowly, you have to remind her appropriately to prevent her from being deceived. Qin Yu agreed very much. Master Du, you also think that Song-su is not a good person, right? At the same time, Huashidu clicked on the recent headlines. It was not difficult to find Song-su's entry. Then, he saw a video. From a further angle, he saw Song-su on the phone with someone, and then the two of them met. Although the pixels were a little blurry, Huashida recognized that the person Song-su was holding and taking away was Bei Yunj. The emotions in the man's eyes were unclear. However, when he glanced at Bei Yunj's wrist, his eyes had already turned dark. His tone was light, but it was also slightly cold. He doesn't seem like a good person. At night, when Bei Yunj returned home, she saw the man sitting on the sofa. He seemed to be the same as usual, but Bei Yunj had a subtle premonition. Brother. Bei Yunj called out naturally and was about to go upstairs. Suddenly, she was stopped by the man. Yunyun. Bei Yunj turned around and sized up Huashida's expression carefully. What's wrong? End of chapter. Chapter 930. Have you been busy recently? The man asked casually. Bei Yunj thought for a moment and nodded. A little. This made the emotions in the man's eyes unreadable. He recalled that the young lady had been leaving early and returning late recently. After a while, just as Bei Yunj was wondering if Huashidu was in a bad mood, he turned around and slowly extinguished his cigarette. Rest for a while before going downstairs to eat. Although the man said that, Bei Yunj still looked at him again. She felt that something was wrong. However, Bei Yunj could not figure out what was going on. There was a moment of silence. Huashidu heard the young lady suddenly say, Brother, I don't know how to solve a math problem. This made Huashidu smile unconsciously. His light-colored eyes stared straight at Bei Yunj, who immediately went upstairs to look for her exercise book. After a while, the man chuckled softly in the living room. It was deep and hoarse, tickling one's ears. The next day, big things happened in Yincheng one after another. At the Computing Institute, Bei Yunj had just taken off her rubber gloves when she saw Qin Luyan's assistant calling her. It seemed that he was very anxious about something, so he called again after hanging up. Soon Bei Yunj picked up. What's wrong? Bei Yunj was still tidying the table slowly, thinking that the assistant was rushing her back to the old residence. However, unexpectedly, she heard the assistant say anxiously, Eldest miss, when can you come to the corporation? Something happened to the corporation. Something happened? Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. The assistant said, Someone in the corporation has betrayed us and moved away our most important project fee. Currently, the higher-ups are forcing Boss Qin to hand over his shares. Bei Yunj stopped. Can't we just make up for the fees? The assistant was used to Bei Yunj not calling Qin Luyan brother. He only said, logically speaking, Boss Qin has the ability to make up for the whole. But Boss Qin really doesn't have any money. This was unbelievable. The CEO of a corporation did not have much money on him. The assistant could not help but blame himself. When something happened to second young master last night, I should have known that everything was premeditated. Something happened to him too? Bei Yunj's eyes darkened. She knew that this matter was not simple. If one of the Qin family members got into trouble, it might be an accident. However, the two of them had met with mishaps one after another. This proved that someone wanted to get rid of the Qin family. Yes, second young master's MV has been exposed for infringement and theft. Now many people are defaming second young master. The assistant wanted to say something else, but Bei Yunj interrupted her. Got it. I'll hang up first. The assistant was stunned by Bei Yunj's cold attitude. Then her eyes filled with anger. Second young master and Chairman Qin were so nice to Mississippi. Why didn't Miss care about them at all? Wasn't he her biological brother? The assistant's heart was stifled, But when he turned around, he saw Qin Luyan standing behind him. He didn't know when it had appeared. Why did you tell her? Qin Luyan's tone was indifferent, but it was not difficult to hear the coldness in it. The assistant didn't dare to look at Qin Luyan. He gritted his teeth. Miss doesn't intend to care about you at all. Chairman Qin, Miss has never treated you as her biological brothers. You. As the assistant spoke, he looked up and met the man's cold gaze. Not long after, Qin Luyan only loosely tugged at his tie. His cold voice was magnetic and indifferent, with an imperceptible self-deprecation. Isn't that good? In this life, no matter what, he could not let go or be implicated. End of chapter. Chapter 931. If she knows how to protect herself, she won't suffer too much in the future. Qin Luyan seemed to be muttering to himself. Then, just as the assistant was about to speak, he was suddenly interrupted by Qin Luyan. Prepare the materials. There's a meeting later. The assistant refused to give up. President Qin, are you really not going to let Miss Qin Yojiao come back? Before he could finish asking, the assistant was shocked by Qin Luyan's fierce gaze. At this moment, Bei Yunj found Qin Luyan's savings in his private account. For the CEO of a listed company with a market value of hundreds of millions, it was indeed strange that his account did not even have 100 million yuan. Then, just as Bei Yunj was checking Qin Luyan's transfer records, she found a bank card number that Qin Luyan had transferred a large amount of money to. Bei Yunj could tell at a glance that the owner of this bank card was actually her. Bei Yunj frowned instinctively. Because there were too many people who transferred money overseas, Bei Yunj did not care how much assets she had under her name. Therefore, she did not expect Qin Luyan to have so much money in this card. Suddenly, Zhong Shenglin knocked on the door of the research room. Guor, do you have anything else? I want to talk to you about the project. Hearing this, Bei Yunj looked away and said calmly, it's fine. Let's continue. At the Qin Corporation, almost everyone was in a panic. In the VIP room on the third floor sat a beautiful foreign woman. She was wearing a purple satin dress, looking elegant and charming. Is he still unwilling to see me? Elena's red lips curled up as she took a sip of the teacup with her black lace-gloved hand, and asked with a smile. This time, it was obvious that Elena had come prepared. Qin Luyan, who was on the 16th floor, also knew that this matter must have something to do with this woman. Miss Elena, I'm afraid President Qin is still unwilling to give in. The higher-ups of the Qin family smiled obsequiously. It was obvious that they had already started to take sides. Elena was the heir of the Angel family. This was not something a small Qin family could compare to. I thought he would learn to be obedient after so long. Elena's tone was natural as she glanced at Qin Luyan's assistant beside her. Go and tell Qin Luyan that I don't have that much time to wait any longer. She smiled charmingly. I like him so much, so of course I don't want to hurt him. As long as he comes to me, I will definitely help him get through this difficult time. After that, Elena kissed the black rose she brought and placed it on the table. There was also a hotel room card. When the surrounding people saw the black rose, they instantly knew who had been sending black roses to President Qin. Who would have thought that it would be Elena Angel? However, they also knew how much Qin Luyan hated the roses that were sent every day. Similarly, Elena's butler was also confused as to why Elena was so obsessed with Qin Luyan. Inside the car, Elena saw the butler's hesitant expression and smiled. You still don't understand why I like Qin Luyan? Miss, your excellence can be matched with an even better man. Elena smiled and closed her eyes. Butler, you're wrong. If not for my background, I wouldn't have been able to threaten him at all. A man like Qin Luyan will surpass me one day with his own abilities. Therefore, before that happens, I will do whatever it takes to get him. Elena opened her eyes slightly, full of mockery. At the same time, I'll help Yu Jiao get rid of someone who should be eliminated. P.S. Continue reading. Sleep early and watch it tomorrow. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.